Chapter 541. Chu Tian first swallowed a true spirit pill. He couldn't help praising the beautiful, intelligent, and capable young miss in his heart. If it wasn't for the precious true spirit pills the young miss prepared to play a key role in, how could Chu Tian be this calm in the purgatory world? The true spirit pills took effect very quickly. Chu Tian quickly left while recovering his spirit energy, using his spatial ability to bring Meiji and Shadow several hundred kilometers away. Even if those fellows were strong, unless they had spatial abilities, they wouldn't be able to catch up in a short period of time. Chu Tian swallowed another true spirit pill. We're safe for now. Shadow let out a long sigh of relief. You've saved me again. How about it? I think I didn't waste a Darkness City spot. At least I had a bit of use. Chu Tian was a bit domineering as he looked at the succubus with a gaze of contempt. Demon race woman, you better remember this. If I didn't make a move out of kindness, you would have already been turned into meat paste. Meiji's heart was filled with lingering fear after escaping with her life. She wasn't a strong person, so she was too lazy to argue with Chu Tian. Then how should I thank you? This. Chu Tian looked over Meiji's body that was filled with a foreign charm. There's no need to repay me with your body, I already have enough beauties by my side. If they knew that I brought a demon back, they would cut me into 18 pieces. This fellow was really hitting a snake on a pole. Who the fuck wanted to repay him with their body? Demon? So what if we demons have demons? We demons don't even look at you humans. Meiji ignored Chu Tian and said with knit brows, although we escaped this disaster, I'm afraid Darkness City. This is bad, this is a carefully planned plot against Darkness City. They want to use the opening of the Devil's Gate to swallow Darkness City. Shadow suddenly realized the seriousness of the situation and his expression changed. He immediately stood up and said, Father is in danger, we have to go back. Meiji gave a few soft coughs, looking very weak and helpless. The Devil's Gate has already been sealed, we don't even have a chance to leave, not to mention saving him. Could it be we just watched Darkness City fall like this? Ing looked at Chu Tian. Human, you have a lot of special abilities and items. Can you think of a way? Chu Tian rolled his eyes. Do you think I'm a god? There were no transport arrays in Darkness City and the Purgatory world, so no matter how skilled Chu Tian was, he couldn't instantly go back to save the situation. Chu Tian didn't owe Darkness City anything. Although he obtained a spot to enter the Devil's Gate, he hadn't obtained any benefits yet. He had also returned the favor by saving Shadow twice and Meiji once. Chu Tian did not have the obligation to give up this great opportunity in front of him, risking his life to kill his way back to Darkness City. The chances of the three of us killing our way out are very slim. Not to mention that there are several Purgatory City lords personally leading their armies to surround us. Even if we kill our way out, we would just be throwing our lives away. I won't do something like throwing my life away. Chu Tian made his position clear. I suggest that we wait and see and find another opportunity to turn the tables. Obscurasa's face became more and more unsightly. He wasn't an unreasonable person. Even protecting himself was a problem, so how could he help Darkness City? Not to mention that the Darkness City Lord's injuries were very serious. If he couldn't bring back a level 3 high-grade immortal herb this time, even if he could solve this problem, he couldn't save the Darkness City Lord's life. It wasn't that Chu Tian didn't want to help, but this wasn't his territory in the end. If he could build the transport tower, with Chu Tian's contributions to the elves, it wasn't impossible to ask Lancelot to help once. With a peak expert like Lancelot as a deterrence, perhaps solving Darkness City's danger wouldn't be a difficult matter. They could only do this now. Shadow and Meiji were both injured. Shadow had been treated by Chu Tian and was basically fine, but Meiji's situation was a bit special. She had been assassinated by Dark Shadow City's peak expert, Zoro. Not only was her heart pierced, she was also hit by the Shadow Demon race's secret technique. Chu Tian's powerful healing energy suppressed the wound, but it was far from being healed. How could she fight against others in this kind of situation? The other side had experts like clouds. No matter how strong Chu Tian was, his cultivation wasn't high enough. How many could he fight at once? Shadow and Meiji were both injured, so they couldn't use their full strength. A large barrier covered the dome, forming a purplish-red color that resembled the sky. The Devil's Gate didn't live up to its name at all. The flowers, grass, trees, and mountain peaks were all crystallized, looking like a piece of art. It was glistening in the multicolored light and aura. How did it look like the land of the devil? This was simply a paradise, a land of assimilation. This super-large barrier gathered all the spiritual energy in the surrounding thousands of miles, creating a sealed environment. The spiritual energy in the Devil's Gate barrier was several hundred times denser than the outside world, so it could be maintained for tens of thousands of years. It could nurture all kinds of treasures and even immortal treasures. Where should they go now? The little fox's nose began to sniff around. It seemed like it had found quite a few good things. It was currently jumping up and down on Chu Tian's body, making a very excited sound. Chu Tian knew that the fox didn't have any other skills, but its treasure hunting skills were first class. Stop making noises, did you find something? The little fox pointed in several directions in front of them and then pointed in another direction. Stop! Chu Tian stopped the little fox. We're still being chased, so we don't have that much time. We can only pick up the good things. The little fox revealed an awkward look. The treasures hidden here were not bad. It revealed a very human-like anxiety as it scratched its head with its claws, finally pointing in a direction. Shadow had seen the little fox's abilities before, so he already knew that it wasn't a normal pet. Meiji had a very shocked look on her face. This little beast didn't have any energy fluctuations at all. From its small and cute furry appearance, it looked like an ornamental little pet. A little pet was this intelligent? This really made people puzzled. The pursuers will be here soon, we need to move. Let's go. Meiji might not be able to beat Chu Tian right now, so she had no choice but to listen to Chu Tian's instructions. The three of them followed the direction the little fox pointed in and finally found a very strange sky-reaching tree in the valley. This tree was several hundred meters tall. The roots were black, the trunk was purple, the branches were red, the leaves were green, and the fruits were golden. From the top to the roots, it was completely crystallized and was releasing a strong spiritual energy. In the center of the five-colored crystal tree, there was a fruit that was different from the others. This fruit was like 5 different colored flood dragons entangled together. Meiji's expression changed. This is the immortal grade 5 colored flood dragon fruit recorded in the ancient books. It is a level 3 medium grade immortal herb. The other golden fruits are golden flood dragon fruits. Although they can't compare to the 5 colored flood dragon fruit, they are still half-step immortal grade treasures. Is this true? Our luck is this good. An immortal herb was already a great fortune, and half-step immortal grade treasures were things that could only be found. If he could take away several half-step immortal grade treasures and immortal herbs, just this harvest alone would make this trip worth it for Chu Tian. Chu Tian was not blinded by the benefits. This kind of immortal grade treasure must have a spirit beast guarding it, but there isn't a single person nearby. I think there must be something wrong with this. Meiji had a bit of respect for Chu Tian. With this kind of large temptation in front of her, even if she had lived for 300 years, it was hard for her to resist. This human looked very young, but he had this kind of determination. It wasn't simple at all. Chu Tian said to Shadow, let's test it out first. Obscurus pulled a pitch-black longbow, and a powerful energy burst out from her fingertips, condensing into a burning black arrow in an extremely short period of time. With a swoosh, she shot it towards the 5-colored fruit. This arrow seemed silent, but it was actually very strong. Even a spirit transformation expert would find it hard to block it head-on. Just as the black arrow was about to hit the 5-colored fruit, the 5-colored celestial tree began to tremble. Each of the golden fruits glowed like light bulbs, forming a golden defensive barrier. The black arrow dissipated like a drop of ink, not causing any damage to the 5-colored celestial tree. Such a strong defensive power. Before the three of them could let out any more sighs, a powerful divine sense fluctuation was released from the five-colored immortal tree like a wild storm. Divine sense, this was the vision domain divine sense. Chu Tian was very surprised to find that this thing's divine sense was not weaker than his. This divine sense was not directed at them, but at the dozens of golden fruits. After each fruit was infused with divine sense, they all began to tremble violently. Then, they suddenly fell off the five-colored immortal tree and fell to the ground. What was going on? Why did the fruits fall off by themselves? Just as the three of them were puzzled, beams of five-colored energy shot out from the five-colored WYRM fruit and landed on the fruits that had fallen to the ground. Something unbelievable happened. One by one, the fruits transformed under the intense light of the energy. In the end, they transformed into several tens of humanoid monsters. These monsters were completely golden, like they were made from gold. They had a flood dragon head and a human body, with a strong aura, actually having strength close to the spirit transformation realm. When the several dozen golden flood dragon people were summoned, they immediately charged at the three of them. It was clear that the five-colored immortal tree had found them. No wonder there were no spirit beasts near the immortal herb. It had a very strong defensive system. Several dozen monsters close to the spirit transformation realm attacking together, this was not something a normal person could block. Seeing this, Shadow shot out several powerful black arrows in succession. One of them was pierced on the spot, but before it had time to celebrate, the five-colored immortal fruit released its energy to envelop the golden flood dragon guard, and the damage it suffered was instantly healed. Several dozen monsters close to the spirit transformation realm are already hard to deal with, but they also have an undying healing ability. Meiji immediately said, "We can't take this pill, let's go." There were countless treasures in the Devil's Gate, but it was not easy to take them all. In this kind of situation, with the three of them, there was no hope of success. It was better to give up and avoid putting themselves in danger. Chu Tian gave a laugh, "Just because you can't get it doesn't mean I can't. If you want to leave, then leave. I'll give it a try first." After saying this, he took out a scroll and released the 18 divine servants. Chapter 542. How could an immortal herb be given up just like that? This was not Chu Tian's personality at all. The 18 divine servants and 32 golden flood dragon guards began to fight, causing sand and stones to fly and energy whirlpools to form. The golden flood dragon guards were individually stronger than the divine servants, but the divine servants' bodies were stronger. The divine servants were controlled by Chu Tian's will, so their coordination was flawless. However, both sides were extremely hard to kill, so this battle would not end in a short time. Pang! The divine servant punched the golden flood dragon guard 10 meters away. Pa! The golden flood dragon guard's claw tore open several wounds on the divine servant's body. Chu Tian did not personally fight with the golden flood dragon guards, but through the divine servants and the golden flood dragon guards, Chu Tian found that these golden flood dragon guards were much stronger than he imagined. There were no cultivation techniques, no secret techniques, no intelligence. They were purely using their golden body tempered for tens of thousands of years to fight against the divine servants. If it wasn't for Chu Tian's nimble control over the divine servants, the golden flood dragon guards would have already broken through their defenses. Good stuff. The half-immortal grade golden fruit had already given Chu Tian quite a pleasant surprise. The golden fruit was most likely a body-tempering medicine, otherwise how could it transform into such a powerful monster like the golden flood dragon guards? This kind of medicine could not only temper the body, but it was also a good thing to strengthen the divine servants. Chu Tian had to get his hands on it no matter what. Although he didn't know what the five-colored immortal fruit was used for, the half-immortal grade golden fruit was already so outstanding, so how could this immortal herb be any worse? From the current situation, this fruit seemed to be able to quickly repair the golden flood dragon guards and provide them with endless fighting strength. At the very least, this proved that it was an extremely powerful recovery-type immortal herb. Meiji and Shadow were once again shocked by the methods Chu Tian showed. This human could summon so many powerful battle puppets at once. Most importantly, these battle puppets all had an inconceivable undying body. They were able to hold back the five-colored immortal tree's golden flood dragon guards for so long. However, obtaining the immortal herb was not so easy. The divine servants couldn't be killed, but they also couldn't kill each other. The immortal tree had enough energy to form an iron wall-like defense, and at the same time, it also had a powerful divine sense that was not weaker than Chu Tian's, providing a deeper layer of protection for the safety of the immortal medicine. If Chu Tian wanted to approach it silently, it would definitely not be easy. Chu Tian quickly weighed his options. Fox, let's attack together. The fox jumped out without saying anything and threw several soul bottles into the air, instantly summoning several demon beasts. These were the level 3 demon beast raging flame dragon souls that the little fox had carefully collected in Miracle City. With the little fox's demonic technique summoning, they were all revived into 4 flaming winged dragons. They charged around the immortal tree and almost simultaneously spat out flames at the immortal tree. It was true that a level 3 magical beast was ferocious. The flaming winged dragon's flames were not weak either. But wanting to burn the 5-colored immortal tree's defenses was just a pipe dream. Under the 5-colored immortal tree's golden energy barrier, the flaming winged dragon's breath couldn't even harm a single leaf. However, this completely infuriated the 5-colored celestial tree's will. The 5-colored celestial tree released an incredibly powerful divine sense attack, which contained a powerful destructive power. The winged dragon's skin and flesh instantly exploded, and they were heavily injured. Good chance. Chu Tian wanted to lure the 5-colored immortal tree to release its divine sense because after releasing a full-force divine sense attack, the divine sense would be weakened for a short period of time. At this time, it wouldn't be able to form a strong divine sense. Shadow and the succubus carefully found that when the flaming winged dragon was pushed back, Chu Tian's jet-black eyes suddenly turned golden. An exceptionally strong divine sense came from Chu Tian's body. The golden color represented the power of divine sense. Chu Tian had a vision domain divine sense, and using his source spirit to release various secret techniques, this was a move that could not be defended against. Chu Tian had confidence in his own strength. If he directly fought with the 5-colored immortal tree's divine sense, it would be hard for Chu Tian to win with his current strength. Therefore, he first held back the 32 golden flood dragon guards before letting the little fox feint an attack. As expected. This fellow was a stupid monster in the end. When the 5-colored immortal tree was attacked by the demon beasts, although it could clearly block it with its strong defenses, it still released a full-force divine sense attack. The 5-colored immortal tree's divine sense was at the vision domain realm like Chu Tian's. This level of divine sense could fuse its own strength into it, creating a strong killing might. The 4 flaming winged dragons were instantly heavily injured with their flesh and bones shattered. The 5-colored immortal tree's divine sense had entered a short period of weakness after this large explosion. Chu Tian seized this chance and formed a strange seal with his hands. His divine sense combined with a divine sense secret technique was released on the 5-colored immortal tree. Divine Sense Seal. The 32 golden flood dragon guards were like their spines had been pulled out, losing all feeling as they fell to the ground. In a burst of light, they turned into golden fruits on the ground. Shadow was very confused. What is happening? He used some method to seal the immortal tree's divine sense and spirit. The immortal tree can't release its divine sense, so it can't use this technique. These golden flood dragon guards have returned to their original forms. Meiji could see a few things, but she didn't know how it was done. This human is truly deep and unfathomable. The little fox was fast and the golden flood dragon guards returned to their original forms. It immediately opened its mouth and several dozen fruits were sucked into its space. Even if the 5-colored immortal tree recovered its divine sense, it couldn't summon the golden flood dragon guards anymore. Ha, 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 this tree's methods are only like this. Chu Tian couldn't help letting out a sigh of relief as he gave a few proud laughs. without these guards, what kind of threat can it pose? The five-colored immortal tree's main ability was summoning, but the summoning materials had been taken away. Even if it broke through Chu Tian's seal, what could it do? Chu Tian quickly found that he was wrong, and he was very wrong. An angry will erupted from the five-colored immortal tree. The entire tree released a dazzling light and an unbelievable scene appeared. The five-colored immortal tree's crystal body began to change shape, undergoing an unbelievable reconstruction. The purple tree turned into bones, the black roots turned into blood vessels, the red branches turned into flesh, the green leaves turned into scales, and the five-colored immortal fruit was embedded in the center of its head, turning into a giant eye. In less than a minute, this immortal tree turned into a terrifying giant over 100 meters tall. Fuck! What is this? This strange creature was not recorded in any ancient books, it was most likely Director Wu that had gone extinct in the river of time. Even the knowledgeable Chu Tian had never seen it before. Its main body was not a tree, but rather an unheard of ancient demon. The ancient demon did not have a mouth and its body released an angry roar. Its single eye released a dazzling five-colored light. Quickly run. The three people and one fox quickly left their hiding place. The five-colored light wrapped around the pillar of light and instantly shot out, flattening the entire mountain peak. This attack was not something a true spirit cultivator could block. When the ancient demon saw that its attack had missed, it once again let out a roar that shook the mountains and rivers. It took a step forwards and its massive body was covered in a multicolored light. In an instant, it had crossed several miles. This speed was completely disproportionate to its size. The five-colored light condensed again and a giant hole appeared in the ground. This time the 18 divine servants were sent flying. This is bad. Chu Tian saw the divine servants fall to the ground, all covered in wounds, and his heart instantly tightened. It wasn't easy to raise the divine servants and they were already important assets to Miracle City, it would be too much of a pity if they were all lost here. Meiji saw Chu Tian stop and couldn't help shouting, "This monster is not something we can fight, quickly leave." Shadow shot out a few arrows, but they were all blocked by the golden barrier. This monster not only had a destructive power that a true spirit cultivator could not resist, it also had a defense that a true spirit cultivator would find hard to break. This kind of powerful attack and defense combined with the ancient demon, how could they fight against it? Chu Tian and the little fox looked at each other. The little fox understood Chu Tian's thoughts and it turned into a gray mist that sucked in the ancient demon's head. The energy around the ancient demon's body weakened a bit. The little fox could restrain it to a certain degree, this gave Chu Tian a bit of confidence. The ancient demon angrily shot a five-colored light at the little fox, but the little fox quickly used the gray mist escaping technique to escape. The beautiful light formed a fan in the sky that could be clearly seen even from 100 miles away. The chance was here. When the ancient demon was busy dealing with the little fox, Chu Tian teleported in front of it. Both his hands formed a sword finger and he released his power at once, phaseless sword rain. After Chu Tian swallowed the void beast's inner core, his phaseless sword art's power had increased by a large amount. This phaseless sword rain was a move that released over 10 phaseless sword fingers at once. How strong was the phaseless sword art? The energy around the ancient demon was too strong, so Chu Tian couldn't directly attack it. He could only attack the incomparably strong golden barrier. Meiji and Chu Tian couldn't clearly see what had happened. They only saw the little fox divert the ancient demon's attack and Chu Tian teleport in front of the ancient demon. There was the sound of glass shattering and the giant golden barrier was like glass that had been hit by arrows as a large crack appeared on it. This time the ancient demon realized something was wrong and immediately focused its attention back on it. Chu Tian swallowed a true spirit pill that was ignited in flames. He charged forward like a meteor and condensed a black demon god's sword in the air. All the netherworld flame and spirit energy gathered together as he released the demon god's sword source spirit to release its strongest destructive might. The demon god's sword increased in size by several times and the sword glow it released seemed like it could pierce through the sky. The ancient demon's five-colored energy began to condense in its single eye. Chu Tian was a step faster as he used his body as a sword. He instantly controlled the powerful energy to pierce through the defense and meet the single eye that was about to release its glow. A terrifying explosion. That intense light and energy swept through the surroundings. Chapter 543. This strong shockwave was something that even Meiji couldn't handle, not to mention Chu Tian, who was at the center of the explosion. Stupid, stupid, stupid. Meiji didn't know whether to laugh or be angry. This fellow who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth thinks he has an immortal body. This time this arrogant and stupid human would definitely be smashed to pieces. Even a defensive spirit transformation cultivator would find it hard to handle this kind of explosion, not to mention a trivial true spirit cultivator. This human did have some skills, mainly in terms of explosive power. His secret technique or cultivation technique could use up all his spirit energy in a few moves, sacrificing endurance in exchange for killing power. Therefore, he had a chance to fight against a spirit transformation cultivator in the 7th to 8th true spirit layer. No matter how high the cultivation technique was or how strong the secret technique was, the power of a 5th true spirit layer cultivator was limited. Meiji wouldn't dare provoke this kind of monster if she wasn't injured, but he was stupid enough to fight it head-on. If this wasn't sending himself to death, then what was? Shadow said in a stunned voice, "He's going to die like this. He's dead for sure." Meiji said to Shadow, "Don't worry about it, let's go." Shadow didn't dare believe that Chu Tian would die this easily. This human was indeed a bit arrogant, but he shouldn't be an idiot. Meiji anxiously shouted, "What are you doing? We can't fight against this demon in our current state. Now that he's dead, it'll be our turn. Hey, you demon woman, no matter what, I've saved your life. Do you really want me to die this much?" When a very familiar voice rang in her ears, Meiji was instantly petrified. She turned around in a daze and her bright red lips opened wide. Her seductive eyes opened wide like she had seen a ghost. Chu Tian wasn't far behind her. From head to toe, from inside to outside, he wasn't injured at all, not even his clothes had a single wrinkle. Chu Tian's starlight immortal body was not enough to completely block this kind of injury. Even if he activated his swallowing ability and saved Chu Tian's little life from the violent energy attack, it was impossible for him to not be injured at all, not even wrinkles appeared on his clothes. This was simply like a legend. At this time, a figure walked out of the energy vortex. Meiji was stunned to find that this person looked exactly like Chu Tian, but his body was full of holes. His head was broken, and one of his arms was missing. From his body to his feet, there were dozens of holes. No creature could survive such terrible wounds. However, this Chu Tian had a cold face, as if he didn't care at all, as if this wasn't his body. If one observed carefully, they would discover that this Chu Tian was indeed unusual. There was no flesh or blood in every wound. Instead, what flowed out were flames, blue and white flames. This was not a living creature at all. "Master, I've got it." This Chu Tian single-handedly handed over a 5-colored immortal fruit. Then, flames crawled out of his pores. Step by step, he walked into Chu Tian's body and completely merged with Chu Tian. What kind of secret technique was this? A cloning technique. There were indeed cloning secret techniques or cultivation techniques in this world. These cultivation techniques were not only very hard to cultivate, they also had very strict requirements for materials. In the vast majority of cases, the doppelgangers created by this kind of doppelganger technique were absolutely not as strong as the main body, but Chu Tian's situation was exactly the opposite. Even if Chu Tian wasn't weak, it wasn't likely he could defeat the ancient demon. However, Chu Tian's clone's aura was even stronger than Chu Tian's. At the last critical moment, it released a strength that didn't lose to the 8th true spirit layer, forcefully gouging out the ancient demon's eye. This was completely illogical, making Meiji completely puzzled. Actually, it was normal not to understand. There weren't many people in this world that could understand. It would be strange if they understood. Chu Tian didn't cultivate cloning techniques at all, and he didn't spend any effort to refine a clone puppet. This move was something he accidentally grasped. Chu Tian's main cultivation technique was the Netherworld Blazing Flame Sword Art. This cultivation technique could only be used with the Netherworld Flame, and when it was cultivated to the peak, it could be used with the Netherworld Clone Slash. The Netherworld Clone Slash's principle was to turn the Netherworld Ghost Flame into one's own appearance, releasing an attack with the same power as the main body. When Chu Tian's cultivation gradually increased, he obtained more and more opportunities. Cultivating the Phaseless Sword, creating his own Heart Sword, and adding in the fact that the Netherworld Sword was broken in the Death Ice Field, the Netherworld Blazing Flame Sword Art should have been useless. However, what was unexpected was that Chu Tian absorbed the Ice Spirit Flame's will, and the Netherworld Flame swallowed the Ice Spirit Flame. After some unknown change, Chu Tian perfectly merged with the Netherworld Ghost Flame. The Netherworld Ghost Flame had always existed as a weapon spirit. But the weapon spirit had become Chu Tian himself. Chu Tian used his body as the weapon and the flame as the spirit. Naturally, he could freely control it without any interference. Adding in the fact that Chu Tian's divine sense had reached the vision domain realm, it allowed Chu Tian to add his will to the Netherworld divine sense and use it as a foundation to create the Netherworld clone technique. This was a true clone technique. The weapon spirit Netherworld was a very strong fighter. The reason why Chu Tian rarely released it was mainly because Chu Tian needed the Netherworld Flame in battle. Once the weapon spirit Netherworld left his body, Chu Tian couldn't use the Netherworld Flame or the Netherworld Blazing Flame Sword Art. Now Chu Tian had gradually eliminated this sword art. Because of this, Chu Tian used the Netherworld even more and created a secret technique that was similar to a cloning technique. This kind of clone was even stronger than the main body, but the difference was that the Netherworld clone could only be given a sword source spirit and normal cultivation technique. It didn't have the flexible abilities of the main body. After Chu Tian condensed his strength to the limit, he directly pushed the Netherworld out and used his remaining spirit energy to teleport once. Therefore, when Mei Ji and Shadow saw Chu Tian was unharmed. Chu Tian could directly control the clone. At the same time, because the core of the clone was the weapon spirit Netherworld, the clone had its own consciousness. When Chu Tian couldn't control it or made a mistake, Netherworld would modify it according to the situation. The huge body of the ancient demon, which was made of crystals of different colors, was like a machine that had lost its kinetic energy. Immediately, it began to produce a series of crackling sounds. However, there was no longer any power. It was just the sound of death. The ancient demon's main body was the five-colored immortal tree. The five-colored immortal tree could give birth to the immortal fruit and have this many abilities, so it had a very strong energy. It was not inferior to the five-colored flood dragon fruit and might even be stronger. The five-colored flood dragon fruit was the demon's heart. Without its heart, even if it was strong, it would still be useless. The little fox jumped onto the demon's head that couldn't move and sucked in the demon's large body. From the demon's crystal body, large amounts of five-colored spiritual energy was released and was continuously absorbed by the little fox. The little fox's body swallowed it until it swelled up. The demon's large body was like a popsicle under the sun, quickly melting. When the little fox absorbed the ancient demon's body, it gave a satisfied burp. It spat out a five-colored aura and its originally round body shrank back to its original size. At this time, the demon's body had already shrunk to half its original size and the rest of its body was like a cracked stone, finally turning into powder. Mei Ji and Shadow were speechless. Whether it was the human or the fox, they were both monsters. How many hidden abilities did he have that he hadn't revealed? Chu Tian placed the five-colored crystal fruit into his storage gourd and then took a true spirit pill to collect the heavily injured divine servants on the ground. The divine servants had divine blood in them, so they wouldn't be easily killed. Unless one was strong enough to destroy the divine servant's body and evaporate the divine blood, normal methods wouldn't be able to cause a fatal injury. The divine servants had been heavily injured by the ancient demon's attack, but in just a few minutes, the divine servants had already mostly recovered. Even the refined puppets were undying monsters. Could it be that everything related to this human couldn't be measured with common sense? Chu Tian decided to take this immortal fruit for himself. He needed a reason to take it for himself, so he said in a serious voice, "It's fine if you didn't do anything at the critical moment, but you've been cursing me behind my back. So, you won't get a share of this fruit because this is the fruit of my labor." What could the two of them do? Chu Tian hadn't signed a contract to split the spoils of war, and Meiji and Shadow hadn't played a single role in dealing with the ancient demon, so what qualifications or reason did they have to take a share? "Since you've said this, then I'm assured." Chu Tian smiled at Meiji and then said, "The commotion here is too big, so those fellows might chase us. It's best if we don't stay in one place for too long, let's go." Actually, with Chu Tian's group's current strength, as long as they weren't surrounded by a large army, they wouldn't necessarily lose to these people. However, there was no need to waste energy on them. Chu Tian still needed to continue searching for treasures, so he immediately left with the two of them. As Chu Tian expected. Not even half an hour after they left, Kildan, Zoro, and several dozen peak experts all appeared at the place where the ancient demon was shouting. "The traces are very fresh." Zoro used his blade to pick up a bit of dirt and sniffed it. "This kind of fierce battle, it means that the battle here was very dangerous. They seem to have completely retreated, there weren't any casualties." The dark giant asked in a puzzled voice, "How did they do it?" "Humph, who cares?" The dark spirit beast that had suffered a loss under Chu Tian's netherworld flame angrily said, "From the smell, they haven't left for more than half an hour. I think they shouldn't have gone far." Kildan said without any hesitation, "Chase, we can't let them leave here alive." Chapter 544. The space inside the Devil's Gate was very large and the spiritual energy was thousands of times richer than the outside world. Not only were there precious herbs and treasures, causing countless experts to risk their lives for them, there were also large amounts of ancient ruins. Each ruin was a treasure left by an ancient ancestor, and its attraction was not inferior to heaven and earth treasures at all. In the process of exploring the ruins, there was a possibility of finding divine weapons refined in the ancient era or various secret cultivation techniques. These were all things that could directly increase one's strength and increase one's battle strength, so who wouldn't be jealous? This was because the pursuers were chasing them very closely. Chu Tian passed by quite a few ruins, but he didn't have a chance to explore them. He could only keep changing his position, using it to mislead Kildan and the other pursuers. After ensuring a safe distance, he would explore and search for treasures, playing hide and seek. Who told them not to have an innate spatial energy user? Chu Tian had a large bottle of true spirit pills left, which was enough for him to deal with them. He also used the little fox's treasure hunting ability to search for treasures. In the end, his harvest wasn't small at all. A mournful cry. It resounded through the sky. A flaming bird was killed by the three of them working together. This flaming demon bird was found in the center of the area, and it was the most intense battle other than the ancient demon. The battlefield was filled with several thousand-meter-wide holes, and each hole was filled with boiling lava. This was all created by the flaming bird's attacks, so it could be imagined just how strong the flaming demon bird's attacks were. The flaming bird had a battle strength in the peak 9th true spirit layer. Its flames were strong enough to burn anything. The three of them used the succubus enchantment technique to kill it, finally successfully killing this strong monster. But after the flaming bird fell, it didn't die. The flames condensed into a large crystal-clear egg. This beast has the bloodline of a phoenix and can be reborn like a phoenix. It will turn into an egg every time it is killed, and as long as it has enough time to absorb energy, it can revive and recover its battle strength. This kind of monster is simply unkillable. Is there a way to seal it? This isn't easy. The phoenix is a divine beast and can break through seals. Even if this beast only has a part of the phoenix's bloodline, it is enough to resist most seals, unless one's strength far surpasses it. The flaming bird was around the peak 9th true spirit layer. Wouldn't this egg need a super expert surpassing the true spirit realm to seal it? If there was no way to seal the flaming bird, it could resurrect at any time. If such a powerful and terrifying existence were to resurrect, the consequences would be unimaginable. Shadow frowned and said, "Since it's so troublesome, why don't we break the egg so it can't undergo nirvana?" "Idiot, this egg is also an immortal grade item. If it's broken, what's the point?" Chu Tian snappily said, "We definitely can't break it. We'll think of another way." The flame bird was the descendant of the fire phoenix. The fire phoenix was a divine beast, and a pure-blooded divine beast could obtain divine-grade materials. Even if the flame bird's grade was much lower, when it transformed into the primordial egg, the phoenix blood and innate life essence were sealed within. If it was given to Nangong Yun, it could help Nangong Yun's great nirvana scripture advance by leaps and bounds. If they broke the egg, it would be putting the cart before the horse. If they didn't break the egg, wouldn't they be carrying a ticking time bomb by their side? The flame bird could resurrect at any time. Moreover, everyone had seen the might of the flame demon bird, so no one wanted to fight it again. The little fox called out to Chu Tian. It pointed at the egg and then at itself, volunteering itself. "You have a way. All right, then let's give it a try." The little fox walked in front of the red crystal egg and used its claws to draw a symbol on the eggshell. This symbol was something Chu Tian had never seen before, so it should be some kind of ancient demonic incantation. No matter how strong the incantation was, it wouldn't have any effect on the flame bird's egg. The little fox had just finished drawing the incantation when it began to burn, so it wouldn't last more than a few seconds. That was enough. The little fox fiercely sucked in the egg and released a strong pulling force from the incantation. The inside of the red crystal egg released a sharp cry and a struggling red and purple figure was pulled out. It had a pair of wings and was covered in flames. It was actually the flame demon bird that had fought with the three of them. When the little fox saw this, it took out a puppet and licked it with its tongue. After being stained with a bit of saliva, it began to forcefully pull the soul out. The flame bird's soul was pulled out, but it was like a piece of rubber. Although it was heavily deformed, it did not break. The little fox revealed a strenuous expression, as if it couldn't hold on much longer. After the flame bird turned into an egg, its soul was at its weakest. Even so, it was still a strong soul, so how could it be easy to pull it out? The little fox had never done anything like this before, so it found that the difficulty was much higher than it had imagined. Chu Tian understood what the little fox wanted to do. He released his Yuan Hun and his eyes turned purple. A purple sickle appeared in the air and slashed down. Soul harvest. The flame crow's strong soul was cut in half. The little fox revealed a look of joy and immediately put away the soul. It added a few more incantations to strengthen the puppet seal. Shadow saw all of this and asked in a confused voice, "What is this for?" It stripped the flaming demon bird's soul alive and sealed it into that strange puppet. Meiji had never seen such a strange thing before. No matter how strong the flame bird is, it can't be revived without a soul. The egg's energy did not weaken at all, but the soul had been completely stripped away. This meant that even if it had enough energy to revive it, without a soul to activate it, it would be meaningless. Chu Tian nodded in satisfaction. "Not bad." The little fox proudly put away the puppet. Ever since Chu Tian became Miracle City's city lord, the little fox had a large group of believers, so it didn't lack souls to use. The little fox placed normal souls into the soul bottle, treating it as a one-time use item. Only the more precious souls were sealed into the soul puppet to be used again and again. Now that it had subdued the flame demon bird's soul, the little fox's strength increased by a large amount. The pursuers were getting closer. The little fox could feel it and immediately reported the situation to Chu Tian. It took a fighting stance, making a suggestion to Chu Tian. "Run, run, run, what are you running for? Just directly hit them." Now that he had a powerful summoned beast in his hands, was there a need to be afraid of these mobs? Chu Tian was not in a rush to make a decision because even if he wanted to fight directly, the battlefield was very important. If there was something he could use nearby, it would be much easier to fight. He put away the flame egg and looked into the distance. He saw a large palace ruins in the center of the plains, with a scale that was hard to see elsewhere. Moreover, this place was close to the core of the Devil's Gate area. What is this place? The Demon Burial Cave. Meiji replied to Chu Tian's question. It said that there is a new entrance that leads to another place, but there are all kinds of demons that have never been heard of, so it has always been a forbidden area. Fox, let's look at the situation first. The little fox took out its divine eye to scout from afar, first scouting the area around the palace ruins in the sky. From the surface, there was nothing suspicious around the ruins. There were ruins everywhere, as well as strange large holes. There was nothing. That's impossible. Even if Chu Tian did not personally come here, he could feel the baleful aura covering the area. This kind of area was where demons and ghosts gathered, so it was impossible for it to be as calm as it was now. How could it be? Chu Tian carefully inspected it a few times, but it was still the same. There's a problem with those holes, let's see what's inside. After the fox received Chu Tian's order, it began to inspect the large holes around the ruins. The scene that the fox saw was transmitted to Chu Tian's field of vision. Chu Tian could clearly see that in each hole, there was a giant dark green jade stone. These were all. Chu Tian's heart was filled with confidence when he saw this. He said to the fox, "All right, increase the scope of the search and let me see what else is nearby." The little fox began to search the ruins, and as expected, because it was too dangerous, no one dared to explore this place. Therefore, there were many good things hidden in the ruins. There was a temple in the center of the ruins. There were several dozen statues made of metal in the temple. Even after being eroded for a long time, there weren't any marks left on them. When the little fox investigated the statues, it was pleasantly surprised to find that the eyes of these statues were made of eyes of the star. Eyes of the star. There were over 100 eyes of the star. What kind of wealth was this? Chu Tian already had a spatial mine, so he didn't need to worry about not having spatial crystals to use. The most scarce resource would be eyes of the star, but who would have thought that there would be over 100 eyes of the star here? This was equivalent to over 100 transport towers, so to Chu Tian, it was even more valuable than an immortal-grade treasure. Take a look inside. When the little fox moved its divine sense inside, it suddenly met an invisible barrier that it couldn't pass through no matter what. Was there something that blocked off divine sense? It didn't matter. He had to obtain these eyes of the star. Chu Tian was worried about how to return to Miracle City. As long as he obtained the eyes of the star and built several transport towers, wouldn't returning to the surface be a matter of seconds? Kildan and the others are closely following behind us, and you two have pretty much recovered. Chu Tian said without any hesitation, "I think there's no need to hide, we'll use this place as the battlefield to fight." All right. Shadow had been waiting for this. Meiji felt that even if Chu Tian was very strong, it would be hard for the three of them to win against over 20 peak experts. Only, Chu Tian had created too many inconceivable miracles, so Meiji didn't have much confidence in her own ideas. Being chased like this wasn't a solution, so she had to see what his plan was. Chapter 545. Kildan, Zoro, and close to 20 experts were hiding in the wilderness. They had followed their aura all the way, and in front of them was the famous dangerous Demon Burial Cave. Kildan was most worried that these fellows would run into the Demon Burial Cave in a panic. How dangerous was the Demon Burial Cave? If Meiji's group ran into the Demon Burial Cave, there was no need to continue this mission. In the legends, the Demon Burial Cave was a large cave that had buried countless monsters in ancient times. Countless peerless beasts and demonic creatures had been buried here, which was why they had developed an extremely powerful resentment. No one knew just what kind of inconceivable existence would be born in such an extreme environment. There had been many brave people exploring the demon burial cave in the Devil's Gate, but in the end, none of them came out alive. Meiji's head could bring quite a bit of reward, but it wasn't enough for Kil'dan to take the risk. But Flame Demon City's Vice City Lord Kil'dan knew the dangers of the demon burial cave. Meiji was Darkness City's Vice City Lord, so it was impossible for her not to know what it meant to enter the demon burial cave. At least Meiji didn't take the risk and just wandered around the demon burial cave. Therefore, Kil'dan and the others should have another chance, but it was just one chance. Whether they could succeed or not would depend on luck. That human of unknown origin was too sly. Each time they were about to catch him, he would notice it and disappear. Kil'dan was filled with rage and was even more determined to get rid of this human's awakening. The Devil's Gate was very large and it was easier said than done to catch someone with innate spatial energy with just these few people. But it didn't matter, they had to exhaust him to death. Who didn't know that spatial energy consumed a large amount of spirit energy? A human running alone consumed quite a bit of energy, not to mention carrying two people. Perhaps they would run out of spirit energy after a few teleportations. Who would have thought that Chu Tian wouldn't be affected at all and would be able to avoid being chased each time? They even had the time to search for treasures. This was something that people couldn't understand or accept. Try one last time. Kil'dan definitely wouldn't chase them into the demon burial cave, but based on Chu Tian and Meiji's movements, they could guess where they were going. They prepared an ambush ahead of time. Since they couldn't chase them, they hid their auras and waited for the bait. Watch out, they're coming. Kil'dan and Zoro were very excited because this plan seemed to be successful because they saw two figures moving at high speeds in the distance. They weren't others, they were Darkness City's Vice City Lord Meiji and the Darkness City Lord Sun Shadow. Where did that human go? No matter what, he had to capture these two first. These were all famous experts of the various cities. They had wasted so much time chasing after them, and they were already filled with anger. Now that they had finally caught them, how could they let them go? That human wasn't important. Kil'dan had a lot of people, so why would they care about a trivial human? Wait for them to get closer. Zoro was like a ghost that completely merged with the environment. He had already started to gather his strength. As long as his prey entered his range, he would be able to instantly kill them. Meiji was still rushing over as if she didn't feel anything. The distance between them was getting closer and closer. At this moment. Wait! Meiji suddenly stopped and said to Ing, "Something is wrong here. Retreat." Ing didn't say anything and followed Meiji to escape. "Meiji, your time of death has come." Kil'dan immediately let out a roar that was enough to shake the earth. You can't escape even if you have wings. Chase! The 20 hibernating beings were already waiting. Although Meiji was alerted before entering the ambush, they believed that they couldn't escape. The succubus and dark elves weren't slow, but the speed they used to escape clearly wasn't enough. Meiji quickly flew into the air and her figure turned into several dozen shadows. Phantom dance. Each phantom was no different from the real one, running in different directions. Kil'dan slapped out with a palm and most of the phantoms were shattered. The remaining phantoms disappeared under the attacks of the experts. At this time, Nuo Luo was already leading 4 shadow demon experts to chase after them. They were like 5 sharp soul-chasing chains that were about to wrap around the two of them. Once the shadow demons attacked, even if they couldn't kill Meiji and Shadow in one hit, they would at least interrupt their speed. Once the experts surrounded them, the two of them wouldn't have any chance of escaping. Their goal had already been defeated. The prey had already been lured to the area Chu Tian had designated. Meiji felt the aura behind her become stronger and Kil'dan and Zoro's attacks were about to arrive. She couldn't help feeling like she was being sold and she shouted in a panic, "Human, why aren't you coming out? Do you want the 4 of us to be here? What are you in a rush for? Aren't I coming right now?" Chu Tian used a spatial movement to arrive in front of the two of them and placed his hands on their bodies. "Go." "Damn!" Kil'dan angrily roared, "He's going to use his spatial ability again. Stop him. Zoro had already charged in front of the two of them and a pitch-black blade slashed out, attempting to cut them in half before Chu Tian could finish his spatial control. He was a bit late in the end. The three of them had teleported the moment the blade swept out and this blade completely missed. Run, run again. Kil'dan and the other demons were seething with anger, but they didn't even have time to be angry before they suddenly felt the earth tremble. It was like a volcano was erupting and they could see several giant pillars of green flames shooting into the sky from the ruins. What happened? Everyone stared blankly at the green pillar of fire rising into the sky, unable to react for a moment. In just a few seconds, thousands of green spots of light appeared above their heads. When they looked closely, they discovered that these were clearly meteorites shrouded in green flames. We've been tricked. Zoro's expression changed as he shouted, "Quickly leave." It was obvious that it was too late now. Thousands of meters were shrouded by the attacks. Countless dark green meteors fell like missiles, or like stones being thrown into calm water, causing the originally calm ground to ripple like raging waves. Not only did each meteor cause a huge energy impact, but the places these meteors hit would also summon a ferocious and terrifying flaming demon. Hundreds of flame demons appeared in the area, each of them possessing considerable strength, and they all pounced on these people. This was just the beginning. Before the meteor shower ended, dozens of especially huge meteors crashed into the ground. From each crater, giants stood up. These giants were more than 100 feet tall, and their outer layer was a set of rocks that looked like armor. Flames were constantly spurting out from the cracks in their bodies. Hellfire demons. These were hellfire demons. There were over 10 hellfire demons. The dark green crystal that Chu Tian found in the pit was actually the hellfire that was in a deep slumber. Chu Tian's plan this time was very simple. Kil'dan had already chased them for 2 hours and they had almost caught up several times, but they had been able to escape, so his heart was filled with rage right now. He purposely used Meiji as bait to lure them to the designated location. Chu Tian and the little fox were responsible for awakening the hellfire and then quickly escaping with their spatial abilities. Then it was time for these fellows and the hellfire to have some fun. When the hell flame fell into the southern summer country's Thunder State, it brought a disaster to Thunder State. Now that several hellfires had been awakened, these hellfires were much stronger than the ones in Thunder State. Each one had the battle strength of the 9th true spirit layer and several hundred flame demons were summoned by these hellfires. This was definitely a very fierce battle. We've been ambushed. Kill our way out, kill our way out. Kil'dan violently destroyed several flame demons before finally sending a fist at the hellfire blocking the way. Although Kil'dan's cultivation was very shocking, the hellfire was not a simple character. When it was hit, it only took a few steps back. The rock in front of its chest was shattered, but it wasn't injured at all. The hellfire released an angry will as it raised a giant flaming fist to counterattack. Kil'dan and the hellfire's fists collided. Although it wasn't weaker than the hellfire in terms of pure strength, the hellfire's body was filled with green abyss flames, which greatly increased its destructive might. Therefore, even Kil'dan felt it was very strenuous. The Dark Giant's Vice City Lord was surrounded by 3 hellfires. He couldn't even deal with one with his strength, not to mention 3 at once. In the end, he killed one of the green abyss flames, but he failed at the critical moment. The Dark Giant's body was covered in green abyss flames and he finally died with a pitiful cry. At the same time, the dark spirit beasts were also surrounded. The green abyss flames released by the hellfire demon instantly swallowed his body, turning him into a fireball. The netherworld flame injury on his body had not healed yet and he was surrounded by hellfires, so he could only die with a grudge. Charge out! Charge out! Kil'dan killed a hellfire and Zoro killed a hellfire. With the 2 of them leading the way, they finally killed half of the hellfire demons and flame demons. It was very difficult for them to kill their way out, but there were only 8 of them left and each one of them was in a very sorry state. They never would have thought even in their dreams. Chu Tian would have set this trap for them. Now that they had suffered heavy casualties, they definitely couldn't stay here any longer. When Kil'dan and Zoro decided to give up on chasing Meiji, they suddenly found 3 people blocking their path. Chu Tian crossed his arms in front of his chest and said with a smile, "You're too slow, I've been waiting here for a long time." Humans. You think you can kill us all with just a few hellfires? The demons had been tricked by Chu Tian and they all hated Chu Tian to the bone. They wished they could drink his blood and eat his flesh, cut him into pieces, and burn his bones to ashes. Chapter 546. So what if he lost most of his strength? Wasn't his current battle strength far above Chu Tian's group of 3? It wasn't certain who would live and who would die. Kil'dan thought like this, and the difference in cultivation between the 2 sides was indeed like this. The person he wanted to kill the most was not Meiji, but rather this human of unknown origin. It was because of this fellow's interference that this simple mission became filled with twists and turns. Not only did it cause heavy losses to the various cities, it was also a great humiliation. The flame demon's power erupted. Kil'dan released a wave of power into the ground. Chu Tian could clearly see the energy spreading in all directions. Wherever the heat wave passed, the ground would crack and magma would wildly pour out. It actually turned the surrounding several thousand meters into a scorched battlefield. An extremely powerful Balrog had the ability to create the best environment for battle. The Devil's Gate was filled with all kinds of volcanoes, so it was easy to create this kind of environment. In this situation, Kil'dan's battle strength would increase by a large amount. Shadow Incarnation. Zoro's illusory body swayed a few times, and every time he swayed, a shadow would appear. Every shadow would become Zoro's doppelganger, turning into the exact same image as Zoro. This was a true doppelganger. Chu Tian's Netherworld clone was just a clone made from the weapon spirit Netherworld. Zoro had truly split from his body, so his will was the same as his own, only it was a bit weaker. Of course, this was a special ability of the Shadow Demon bloodline, it was something other races couldn't learn. Shadow Fission. Death Shadow. Several experts used their own techniques. Although they were in a very sorry state from the Hellfire Demon, they didn't lose their battle strength. They attacked together at this moment with the thought of capturing Chu Tian's group in one fell swoop. Kil'dan's body was like a tree's root stabbing into the cracks of the lava, allowing his body to flow into the ground. He said to Chu Tian during this process, "Human, no matter what reason you have, you won't have a future with Darkness City. I'll give you a chance. Become a Flame Devil servant now, and Flame Devil City won't pursue this matter. You can continue living." Chu Tian laughed, "I'm sorry, I value my appearance very much. You guys look like shit, I think it's better to save it." "You asked for it." Kil'dan said to Zoro beside him, "Go, kill him." Zoro and several Shadow Demon experts had been waiting for a long time. Along with a dozen shadow clones, they charged at Chu Tian at once. The little fox didn't wait for him to tell it to jump out and spit out a puppet from its mouth. A strong bird cry came from the sky and a large cloud of fire appeared in the sky. This strange scene made Zoro slightly hesitate because he could clearly feel a strong energy fluctuation coming from within the cloud of fire. Squeak! Amidst the cries of the phoenix, the flaming bird finally completed its gestation. When its entire body was burning, it drilled out of the cloud of fire, and its terrifying aura caused everyone to feel a suffocating pressure. The Shadow Demon experts didn't even have time to react. Under the little fox's command, the flaming demon bird charged straight at them. It suddenly spat out a strange golden red flame from its mouth, instantly covering the area it passed by. The hot flame instantly swept across and Zoro's shadow clones were all disintegrated. Several demon experts were caught in the flame and were instantly burnt to a crisp, even their protective spirit energy didn't work. What kind of technique was this? Kil'dan never would have thought that without Chu Tian's group of 3 making a move, a common little animal would be able to control this kind of powerful fierce beast. They had clearly underestimated Chu Tian's ability once again. After Zoro dodged the flaming demon bird's attack, he immediately began to retreat. "Sir Zoro, we haven't even started fighting yet." Meiji deliberately used a teasing tone to say, "Could it be you want to retreat?" Almost as soon as she said this, a powerful spiritual energy covered Zoro's body. After Meiji's illusion technique hit him, Zoro couldn't move at all. Good chance. Shadow seized this chance to shoot an arrow. "You guys." Zoro looked down at his chest that was pierced through. His illusory figure became even more blurry and his vitality was weakening. "You're clearly heavily injured, how could you?" Whether it was Meiji or Shadow, they were both heavily injured in front of the Devil's Gate. Meiji's injury was Zoro's handiwork. Zoro knew better than anyone how serious the injury was. With Meiji's ability, it was already a miracle that she could survive. Not to mention, not only did she survive, but her strength had also recovered. Zoro couldn't understand this question. He would never be able to understand it. A few seconds later, the flaming demon bird swooped down and counterattacked. A ball of flames engulfed Zoro and killed off the ordinary demons one after another. Dead. They were all dead. This result was like a slap to Kil'dan's face. He was filled with confidence that he could take care of the other side, but the other side took care of him in 2-3 moves. This kind of large gap could be imagined. Why didn't the flame demon Kil'dan die? Because he was a flame demon, he was basically immune to fire attribute attacks, which made him the only demon that could restrain the flaming demon bird. This is what they call reciprocity. Chu Tian directly said to Kil'dan, "If you promise to leave Flame Demon City and become my slave, I can spare your life. In your dreams." The flame demon Kil'dan's half-melted body began to melt. There was a bright red liquid flowing down that seeped into the cracks in the ground. Since he had fused with the earth fire, as long as he had this move, Kil'dan could not be killed. "I have fused with the earth fire, how can you kill me?" Kil'dan's voice came from deep underground. "Flames are useless against flame demons, they will only increase the flame demon's strength." "Is that so?" Chu Tian revealed a cold smile and a lotus flower appeared in his palm. "Only in my eyes, even fire can be burned." After saying this, Chu Tian gently waved his hand. This lotus-like flame entered the ground under his feet, and a bluish-white flame was produced in the crack. It quickly spread along the crack, like a flame in a gully filled with fuel, almost instantly filling up all the cracks in all directions. Looking at it now, it looked like a profound array made of blue and white flames. "Ah, impossible." Kil'dan's mournful voice came from the ground. "What kind of fire is this?" "No, impossible, how could the flame demon be injured by fire?" "Impossible, this is definitely impossible." The netherworld flame became stronger and stronger, igniting the entire earth fire. The cracks in the several thousand meters around Chu Tian released blue and white flames. Kil'dan thought that by fusing with the earth fire, he would be invincible, but he never would have thought that Kil'dan would create a crematorium for himself and then lie in it. "You have no chance, you have no hope." Kil'dan's voice came from the flames. "The new Eastern Territory King has already appeared. Darkness City is the Purgatory World's imperial city created by the Eastern Territory King. Its destruction is unavoidable. If you dare go against the Eastern Territory King, your end will be 1,000 times worse than mine." Kil'dan's voice trailed off. A flame demon that was immune to fire died to the flames? This could be said to be ironic. Eastern Territory King. Meiji's expression became very serious. Could it be that the Eastern Territory King has really appeared? Chu Tian asked in a puzzled voice, "What Eastern Territory King?" The eastern region of the Purgatory World has always been evenly matched, so there hasn't been any trouble. The Eastern Territory hopes to find a strong and wise leader. The Eastern Territory King that Kil'dan mentioned is an existence that has the qualifications to become a ruler. This person's strength has already broken through to the true spirit realm. broke through to the true spirit realm? This kind of strength could be considered a country protecting expert in a warring kingdom and could be considered a first-class expert in an empire. There was actually this kind of expert that appeared in the Eastern Territory. This could also explain why several cities worked together to attack Darkness City. If what Kil'jaeden said was true, it was impossible to take back Darkness City. Chu Tian saw Meiji and Shadow's serious expressions and he suddenly said, "This problem isn't hard to solve, let's make a deal. I'll help you take back Darkness City as soon as possible, but half of Darkness City will belong to me from now on." Such big words. Meiji gave a snort. "Do you think you can fight against an army? Do you think you can fight against hundreds of experts with your strength alone? You want to control half of Darkness City by yourself? This is not a normal bandit, rather it is an unknown Eastern Territory king." Chu Tian shrugged his shoulders. "It's like you said, it's impossible for you to take back the city with your own strength, so why don't you choose to believe me once and take a gamble?" Meiji and Shadow were both skeptical. But the situation wouldn't get any worse, so it was fine to agree. "We can give you the promise you want, but how will you take back the city?" "The first step is to enter the Demon Burial Cave." Meiji looked at him like she was looking at a ghost. "The Demon Burial Cave is a very dangerous place. Once you enter, you will face a situation where you will die 10 times out of 10. Chu Tian said, "This is the most important step in taking back Darkness City. I have already seen the eyes of the star in the temple above the Demon Burial Cave and these eyes of the star are the most important materials." Was there a choice? Of course not. The Devil's Gate had several Purgatory World armies stationed here, so Chu Tian couldn't leave with the two of them. Since it was like this, they could only keep exploring. Perhaps there would be other discoveries. "Let's go." Chu Tian directly set off. Chapter 547. Chu Tian returned to the place where the trap had been set up. There were 7-8 hellfire demons and several hundred flame demons wandering around. The ground was covered in green flames, just like a green forest. This was the green abyss flames released by the hellfire demons that had been killed in battle. Meiji said to Chu Tian, "The abyss demons are very hard to deal with. Since we've drawn out these demons, we'll go around them and enter the Demon Burial Cave temple." "No, it's too wasteful to just give up like this, I can't do this." Chu Tian did not explain and directly said to the little fox, "Do you know what to do?" The little fox did not say anything else. Pang! A gray mist appeared. The little fox appeared in the center of the demons. Meiji and Shadow's expressions changed. The hellfire demons were all in the 9th true spirit layer and they were half-elemental demons. They didn't have any vital points, so it was very hard to kill them. Otherwise, how could Kil'jaeden, Zoro, and the others be forced into this miserable state? The green flame demons had been bred for over 1,000 years, so they were at least in the 1st to 2nd true spirit layer, so they were not easy to deal with. They clearly didn't need to provoke them, so why did Chu Tian want to cause trouble for them? This was simply unreasonable. These demons discovered the little fox's appearance at the same time and immediately charged over like a tide. Shadow's eyes opened wide as he said, "This spirit beast is in danger." Chu Tian smiled without saying a word. This kind of scene had no effect on the little fox. It calmly let out a breath, and its small body released a faint purple ripple. It instantly spread out layer by layer, covering all the demons inside. Under this strange energy, the demons' mobility was greatly reduced, and they all became slow and sluggish. Almost there. The little fox stopped breathing and sucked in its stomach. The surrounding purple ripples gathered back and it was like a storm being stirred up. Large amounts of green flame demons were like iron powder that met a strong magnetic field, instantly shattering into pieces and being sucked into the little fox's body. With a single breath, at least tens of green flame demons would be killed. The other green flame demons and hellfire demons were also heavily injured. This time it didn't just shock Meiji and Shadow, even Chu Tian was shocked by the little fox's performance. Back in Thunder State, when when the little fox faced a weak hellfire that had just crossed plains, it could only slightly restrain it. He never thought that in just a year or two, the little fox's progress would be this great. It already possessed the ability to suck this kind of powerful abyssal demon dry. The abyssal demons had the ability to think. Once the little fox's powerful methods were used, the abyss demons felt a strong sense of unease and fear. The hellfire demons had a certain level of intelligence, and when they faced the little fox, it was like a rabbit facing an eagle. A natural enemy appeared in the depths of their souls and it made them lose the courage to fight. Meiji then saw an incredible scene. These abyssal demons, who had always been known for their madness and cruelty, all turned around and prepared to flee. Don't let them escape. Chu Tian raised his sword and shouted, "Quickly, kill them." The little fox wouldn't let these demons go so easily. With a series of breaths, the green flame demons were killed one by one and the hell flames were weakened to the extreme. Within the little fox's domain of absorption, it was like their feet were stuck in glue, making it hard for them to move. Kage drew his bow. So. The flames around the hellfire demon's body had been mostly sucked by the fox, causing the hellfire to become very weak. Its strength and defense had decreased by a large amount. Kage's arrow had actually shattered the hellfire demon's body. How was this like shooting a powerful demon? It was simply like shooting a porcelain doll. With a hua-la sound, it completely shattered. Even Kage's strength could kill these incomparably strong beings from a long distance, not to mention the stronger Meiji and Chu Tian. The three of them didn't spend too much energy to deal with the hellfire demons. This was completely different from what Kildan and the others experienced. After the hellfire demons were killed, other than the rubble on the ground, each hellfire demon's green abyss flame origin flame was left behind. This was what Chu Tian wanted. Chu Tian released several dozen netherworld flames from his body and each netherworld flame wrapped around a ball of green abyss flame before returning to Chu Tian's body. These were several dozen extremely strong green abyss flames. It was enough to burn any true spirit cultivator's body to ashes. Chu Tian had sent them all into his body like this. What kind of dangerous and crazy method was this? If they were nurtured under the same natural conditions, the green abyss flame would not be inferior to the netherworld flame, but Chu Tian's flame had been carefully nurtured by Chu Tian. Not only did it consume large amounts of resources, it had also swallowed many things, including the rare and precious ice spirit flame. In terms of quality, Chu Tian's netherworld flame was already in the immortal grade and these green abyss flames were only in the sacred grade. Therefore, the netherworld flame could suppress and swallow the green abyss flames. Even if the netherworld flame had evolved to a high level, even if it refined these green abyss flames, it wouldn't make a qualitative leap in quality. However, absorbing these flames would increase its strength by a large amount. If the weapon spirit netherworld was only in the 7th truth layer before, now it was close to the 9th truth layer. Chu Tian was even more satisfied with the fact that while refining the green abyss flames, he felt like he had taken several high-quality sacred pills at once, allowing his cultivation base to clearly increase. It was already close to the peak 5th true spirit layer. It increased. It increased again. In this trip to the purgatory world, he hadn't obtained many benefits yet, but the increase in his strength was quite good. That's enough. Meiji indignantly walked in front of Chu Tian. She couldn't stand this human anymore. We know you have the ability to reach the heavens and we know you have remarkable abilities, but can you tell us before you do anything abnormal? Let us be mentally prepared. Sorry, I'm a person who likes to create surprises. Chu Tian was not ashamed at all as he said with a giggle, "You'll be working for me in the future, it's better if you get used to this kind of thing early." Meiji glared at him, "We'll talk about it after you take back Darkness City." Is this a very difficult thing to do? If Chu Tian built a passage between the Purgatory World and Miracle City, with Miracle City's power, how hard would it be to take back Darkness City? Speaking of this, Chu Tian had already left Miracle City for many days. He really didn't know what Miracle City's situation was like. There was no doubt about the young Miss abilities, and miracle commerce was filled with talents. Chu Tian was most worried about the giants of the Forest of Chaos, especially terrifying existences like Deathwing. If they wanted to make a move against Miracle City, anything could happen. No. Miracle City was their main camp, so anything could happen anywhere except Miracle City. Chu Tian couldn't keep wasting time in the purgatory world. He had to get the Eye of the Star as soon as possible and dig out some spatial crystals to build a transport tower. Don't say any more, let's go in. Chu Tian didn't have the mood to joke around anymore. There was more than one temple near the demon burial cave, and the little fox had found quite a few good things. Of course, places with good things were usually filled with danger. Chu Tian didn't want to cause any problems for now, so he had to get the Eye of the Star first. The demon burial cave was filled with various ancient restrictions and traps. With Chu Tian's powerful divine sense and the little fox's vigilance, they didn't trigger a single trap when they walked over. This allowed Chu Tian to smoothly enter this ancient and mysterious temple. An oppressive aura suddenly spread out. This temple was in the center of the Devil's Gate area, and it seemed like it was built to seal the demon burial cave. The entire temple's altar and statues were all made of very expensive metal. After all these years, although the outside had been eroded, the inside of the altar was still as new as before. Meiji felt her heart beating uncontrollably. This was the most dangerous place in the Devil's Gate area. This was because the bottom of her feet was the legendary demon burial cave that had buried countless ancient demons. No one knew what had appeared here in the billions of years that had passed. Shadow pulled out a small knife and said, "You want the eyes of a deity?" "That's right, the eyes of these deity statues are all good quality Eye of the Star." Chu Tian paused before continuing, "With these Eye of the Star in hand, Darkness City can be saved." Meiji didn't waste any words. She flapped her wings and flew into the air, preparing to attack a deity statue. Chu Tian found a strange situation. "Be careful." Meiji attacked a deity statue. When she touched the deity statue, what no one would have thought was that the deity statue would release a sound. It was like the sound of metal colliding, clear and bright, like there was nothing wrong with it. However, this sound was like a needle stabbing into a person's brain. Pooh! Shadow directly spat out a mouthful of blood. Meiji's spiritual energy was strong, so she wasn't heavily injured, but she still felt intense pain. She immediately returned to her original spot with a pale face. What is going on? Each deity statue seems to have a very strong restriction placed on it. Chu Tian used his divine sense to inspect the surrounding deity statues. No matter what kind of energy we use to destroy it, the restriction inside the deity statues will automatically activate. It is like a bell being struck, and these deity statues will release a spiritual wave that can kill. If it wasn't for the fact that your attack wasn't too heavy, perhaps you wouldn't have any battle strength left even if you didn't die. Shadow wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, still feeling dizzy. This strength is too strong. What should we do? There is no truly perfect restriction in this world. Chu Tian's brows slightly knit together. There must be a way to break it. Chapter 548. Chu Tian's divine sense was like a slowly flowing tide, quickly filling the entire space of the temple. The statues in the temple were all made of unknown abyss materials, which could stop Chu Tian's divine sense from entering, so he couldn't see what kind of structure the statues had. Fighting force with force wouldn't work. There had to be a control core in the temple. As long as the energy supply core was cut off or destroyed, the temple would no longer be protected and these statues could be destroyed. Shadow found that there was something strange about the altar, so he immediately called out to Chu Tian, "There seems to be a passage in this altar." Altar? That's right, it had to be the altar. Chu Tian didn't know what race or civilization this temple was built by, but from common sense, the altar was the control center of the temple. In this current situation, the best choice was to start with the altar. The entire temple was very large and the altar was in the center. It was around 80 meters tall and had a diameter of over 100 meters. It was in the shape of a trapezoid and the surface of the altar was covered in holes, with the top being hollow. If it wasn't in the ruins of the temple, one would think that it was some strange race's lair. The altar was covered by some kind of power and Chu Tian's divine sense couldn't enter, but he could vaguely feel a very bad feeling. Fox, go in and take a look first. The little fox entered the altar first. Not only was it alert, it didn't reveal its aura, so it wouldn't attract attention. At the same time, it was quite flexible. In this unknown situation, having the little fox scout was the best choice. In the end, the little fox had entered the altar for less than 30 seconds before it immediately ran out with a panicked expression. It immediately warned Chu Tian to run. What's going on? Chu Tian didn't know what was going on. The temple suddenly shook like there was an earthquake. From the large holes on the surface of the altar, thick tentacles covered in barbs suddenly came out. Each tentacle was dark red and other than being covered in sharp barbs, there were large amounts of ancient runes and totems carved on them, releasing a powerful energy and aura. One of the tentacles stretched out 1,000 meters, directly attacking Chu Tian's group from inside the altar. Chu Tian condensed the demon god's sword in his hands and with a metallic sound, he forcefully blocked the tentacle from the distance. But in the next moment, the runes on the surface of the tentacle lit up and a strong energy was released from the tentacle. It was like being clawed by a behemoth. The demon god's sword was shattered and a terrifying power slammed into Chu Tian's body. Chu Tian was sent flying to the end of the temple and slammed into the wall. What kind of monster is this? It's really fucking strong. Chu Tian's body was covered in starlight. Although he had the starlight immortal body to protect him and wasn't injured, the monster's strong attack power still shocked Chu Tian. This was definitely the temple's guardian beast. If a single tentacle was this strong, then this tentacle had over 100 tentacles. If they attacked together, how could they block it? The roars coming from the temple became stronger and stronger. More than 100 tentacles had reached out, and 4 or 5 of them were attacking Ying and Meiji. The symbols on the surface of the tentacles could generate a great power, and the sharp barbs on the tentacles were like rolling blades. If these tentacles hit their bodies, would they still be able to find a whole piece of their bodies? A black flame arrow. Shadow had a tentacle covered in black flames, but this attack didn't seem to have any effect on the monster. It didn't stop the monster's attack at all. Meiji had no choice but to make a move when she saw this. Her figure suddenly flickered and turned into 7-8 shadows, instantly bringing Shadow out of the attack range. Phantom Swift Slash. Meiji launched another attack. Every step she took left behind an afterimage. Her trajectory was completely unpredictable. In the end, she slashed out an incomparably sharp blade light and chopped off a huge tentacle on the spot. Meiji was still a 9th true spirit layer expert no matter what. Even if the succubus excelled in spiritual domain battles, with this high cultivation base, even if it was a real battle, Meiji would not be weak. The succubus cultivation technique was very fast and her attacks were very sharp. She was only second to the shadow demon's peak assassin. Unexpectedly, the thick tentacle did not seem to cause any substantial damage to the monster. Half of the tentacle that fell to the ground was like a fish out of water, constantly jumping and rolling, shrinking at a speed visible to the naked eye. The smoke emitted from inside was absorbed by the broken tentacle, which allowed the tentacle to regenerate in a very short period of time. This won't do. The monster couldn't be killed at all. When Meiji had thoughts of retreating, a low roar came from the temple and over 100 tentacles shot out. This time the monster's target was not the intruders, rather the shockingly strong tentacles were aimed at the statue in the temple. It's over. The monster was going to attack the statue. The temple's guardian beast naturally wouldn't attack the statue to destroy it. Just like how Meiji had accidentally touched the statue and caused a strong spiritual attack, these over 100 statues in the monster's hands were simply over 100 killing machines. This monster was hitting the statue like a bell and the spiritual energy released from the statue was strong to an unimaginable degree. This was enough to instantly kill an entire army, not to mention these intruders. Not to mention Shadow, even Meiji had no chance of surviving. The spiritual storm produced by over 100 statues at the same time might have already surpassed the attacks of the demon ants in the Demon Ant Valley. Even if an expert above the true spirit realm met this kind of attack, they would be in danger of dying. Because the spiritual attack covered a large area, it would be too late even if they escaped the temple. Chu Tian couldn't escape with his space movement in time. "Look into my eyes." Chu Tian shouted at the critical moment. His eyes turned golden and a divine sense secret technique was released. Eyes of eternal slumber. The moment Meiji and Shadow met Chu Tian's eyes, they immediately felt a powerful force rush into their souls. Shadow lost consciousness and fell to the ground. Meiji had enough power to resist this secret technique, but Meiji instantly understood Chu Tian's thoughts. Therefore, not only did she not resist, she completely let go of her defenses, allowing it to enter her mind. She closed her mind. The two of them closed their minds in an instant. Their minds were closed and their thoughts were stopped. In this kind of situation, the spiritual attack would lose its effect or reduce the damage to the minimum. This was the only way Chu Tian could save the two of them. A series of bell-like sounds erupted mightily. Even if their minds were closed, the two of them were still bleeding from their 7 orifices. It was clear they had received quite a bit of an attack. Chu Tian had a kind of splitting headache, but compared to the time in the Demon Ant Valley, Chu Tian's mind, strength, and divine sense had all been increased. Because of his immunity to spiritual attacks, he didn't receive any damage. The little fox also had immunity to spiritual attacks. But it was affected to a certain extent. It was dizzy like it was drunk. The little fox was filled with rage when it woke up, taking out the soul puppet to summon the flames. The flaming demon bird was a terrifying existence in the peak 9th true spirit layer and its moves were very powerful, possessing a terrifying destructive might. Flames spread out in the direction of the altar, instantly burning several tentacles black. It was no use. These tentacles were not the monster's true weakness. Therefore, even if they burned all the tentacles, the monster would be able to regenerate them in a short period of time. The monster's main body was definitely hiding in the altar, but the altar was protected by a power that made the monster seem like it was wearing an impenetrable armor. Or it could be said that it was hiding in a fortress that even a true spirit realm expert or someone above the true spirit realm couldn't destroy. How should they deal with it? The tentacle monster's scorched black tentacles quickly returned to normal. Dozens of tentacles knocked on the statue again. The flaming demon bird, which was preparing to attack in mid-air, was immediately hit by the fierce spiritual wave. In an instant, it turned into countless exploding sparks and disappeared on the spot. This kind of powerful being was actually instantly killed. "Father doesn't believe that I can't deal with you." Chu Tian shouted at the fox, "Stall it for me." The fox couldn't summon the strongest flaming demon bird for now, but it didn't matter. The fox had many good cards, so it spat out 5 green souls in the air. In the end, the 6 green souls turned into flaming meteors that slammed into the altar in 5 different directions. When the hellfire demon fell as a meteor, the destructive might it produced was something even a peak 9th true spirit layer expert couldn't compare to. Therefore, it instantly destroyed most of the tentacles. After the hellfire demon stood up, it surrounded the altar and temporarily attracted the tentacle monster's attention. Good chance. Chu Tian teleported in front of the altar and stepped on a thick tentacle, quickly running into the altar. The tentacle monster quickly felt Chu Tian's intentions. The giant tentacle covered in barbs began to move, just like a meat grinder. Void escaping. Chu Tian used his void escaping and teleportation abilities to avoid being turned into mincemeat several times. Finally he passed through the long passage and arrived at the core of the altar, finally seeing the monster's main body. This was a soft octopus-like creature. This creature's head was streamlined and it had a large green eye. Under the eye was a large mouth filled with white fangs, looking evil and terrifying. It was a typical abyss demon. "I've finally seen you." Chu Tian released the divine servants this time, but he didn't have time to attack. The tentacle monster's mouth filled with fangs released a low roar, and countless tentacles as thick as an arm quickly shot out from its mouth. Too fast. Chu Tian didn't have time to react. He and the divine servants beside him were instantly tied up, and with lightning speed, they were swallowed alive by this incomparably large monster. Chapter 549. This tentacle monster's strength was very terrifying, even a super expert like Lancelot would find it hard to deal with. It was no wonder the ruins' creator had sent it here to guard the temple. After Chu Tian was entangled by the long tentacles, he immediately felt as if the spirit energy in his body was like a flood that had broken through a dam. It was frantically draining away at an extremely fast speed, and in this process, he was also dragged into a bottomless abyss. There was no air. There was no light. The abyss was filled with a strong dark death and demonic energy. This was the monster's inner world. This monster's ability was similar to the little foxes. Their bodies had their own space, so they could store a lot of energy and objects. The tentacle monster's inner world was not inferior to the entire temple. Once a living being was swallowed, they would be completely corroded by the dark energy and become the tentacle monster's snack, with no chance of escaping at all. Chu Tian's spirit energy had already been sucked dry. No matter how deep a cultivator's cultivation was, if they didn't have a trace of spirit energy, they wouldn't be any stronger than a normal living being. This monster could instantly suck away all their spirit energy, so it could restrain almost all cultivators. Therefore, once they were swallowed by this monster, they would die 10 times out of 10 times. Troublesome, truly troublesome. But daring to provoke Grandpa Chu Tian, no matter how skilled you were, you would still be finished. Chu Tian didn't have a single trace of spirit energy left, but Chu Tian's strength did not just come from his cultivation, it also came from the weapon spirit in his body and his vision domain divine sense. These powers were fundamentally different from spirit energy. Hong! A blue and white flame was released from Chu Tian's body. After the netherworld flame swallowed a large amount of the green abyss flame, it was twice as thick as before. With the large amount of dark energy in the surroundings as fuel, the netherworld flame's area had increased several times in a short period of time. If it continued to expand like this monster's stomach would be filled with netherworld flame and it wouldn't be able to bear the consequences. The tentacle monster could clearly feel that Chu Tian was resisting, so it immediately condensed a new energy in its body. It was like a black ink that filled the surroundings. It actually resisted the netherworld flame and began to corrode it to a certain degree. What a powerful beast! Chu Tian did not panic in the face of this situation. Because of Mingyi opening the way, his spiritual sense could already cover the surroundings. The 18 divine servants returned to Chu Tian's control. It was as if 18 light bulbs had been lit up. It was like 18 suns rising in the dark night. When the netherworld flame burned off the 18 divine servants' tentacles, the divine servants released a golden light from the inside out. They were like 18 meteors flying through the endless darkness, instantly flying out in all directions, slamming into the black energy. Puchi, Puchi. Light pierced through the darkness. The divine servants contained spiritual God's power, and the black energy that could stop the netherworld flame was actually the demonic energy of the tentacle monsters. The spiritual God's power was the nemesis of this demonic energy, therefore the 18 divine servants instantly evaporated 90% of the black energy that the netherworld flame couldn't burn. Boom boom boom. The netherworld flame continued to wreak havoc, and there was no obstruction this time. The tentacle monster's body was completely ignited by the netherworld flame. It was like a terrifying furnace that was releasing an unbelievable power. When Meiji woke up in a daze, she found that Chu Tian had already disappeared. The little fox controlled the summoned hell flame to protect them. When he didn't know what had happened. Suddenly, the tentacles of the tentacle monster twitched as if it had been electrocuted. Following that, there was a loud noise and pressure coming from inside the altar. This indestructible altar started to crack from the inside out, and each crack released a blinding light. A large explosion rang out. The entire altar was shattered. The center of the explosion was like the birthplace of the sun. The bluish-white flames formed a rapidly expanding bubble that instantly pushed forward to every corner of the temple. Everything in its path was destroyed. More than 100 godly statues that were originally indestructible were all shattered into powder at this moment. Even if one was standing outside the demon burial treasury, they could still clearly see a giant ball of energy rising up. The energy storm raged for about a quarter of an hour. Finally, when the dust gradually settled, Meiji discovered that the entire temple had been turned into a ruin that couldn't be any more broken. The surrounding landscape of a dozen li had been completely destroyed and changed. What kind of terrifying energy was this? Meiji found it hard to imagine that this energy seemed to be the same as the flames on Chu Tian's body. Although the explosion was very strong, the flames still had a high degree of self-control, so it didn't cause any damage when it came over. Chu Tian and the 18 divine servants gradually appeared from the sea of flames and dust. They were unharmed from head to toe, looking like they were just taking a walk. The little fox appeared in front of Chu Tian. Its little mouth opened. With a hua-la-la, large pieces of the eye of the star were spat out. When the statue was destroyed, the little fox had already gathered the eye of the star fragments to prevent the precious eye of the star from being damaged in the energy storm. Not bad. Chu Tian rubbed the little fox's head and said in a puzzled voice, why did you turn over a new leaf? It's not like you to be this obedient. The eye of the star was an extremely rare treasure. How could this fellow not be greedy? The little fox narrowed its eyes and rolled its eyes. Chu Tian immediately found something fishy in its expression and also narrowed his eyes. The master and pet looking at each other was a very strange scene. Chu Tian suddenly turned around to charge into the ruins. Who would have thought that the little fox would be a step faster and instantly entered the ruins of the altar? After a few minutes, it came out of the ruins again with an octagonal black crystal core in its mouth. It was clearly left behind by the tentacle monster. Chu Tian angrily shouted, "Fuck, don't eat it. Let me see it first." The little fox impolitely swallowed it into its stomach. What kind of powerful demon was the tentacle monster? The little fox wasn't greedy, so it didn't like the eye of the star at all. The little fox ate the tentacle monster's core and began to digest it. Its body quickly swelled up and automatically turned into a giant demon fox, with a fourth tail coming out. Although the fourth tail was a bit incomplete compared to the previous 3 tails, it was already close to perfection. The little fox could be an ancient 9-tailed demonic fox. The 9-tailed demonic fox's strength was determined by the number of tails it had. The more tails it had, the stronger it was. Now that the little fox had 4 tails, it didn't fear any true spirit cultivators. This fellow. Chu Tian gave a helpless sigh. If he couldn't obtain it, then he couldn't obtain it. Chu Tian found that after the tentacle monster was killed, large amounts of treasures came out from within its body. Now the ruins were filled with all kinds of treasures. Looking over it, there were all kinds of ancient weapons and materials. Chu Tian found several large black eggs in a certain place. These must be the tentacle monster's eggs. This monster was this strong, so its eggs must be top-quality materials. Perhaps it could even give birth to a terrifying creature like the tentacle monster. When Chu Tian was prepared to carefully look for other treasures, the ground began to tremble again and several large cracks appeared on the altar of the temple. The entire ground caved in to form a hole that became larger and larger, finally reaching a diameter of 500 meters. Meiji shouted, "Such a strong energy fluctuation." Chu Tian also felt a strong energy being released, like a volcano that had been suppressed for tens of millions of years was about to erupt. His expression couldn't help changing. "Let's leave first, let's go." Chu Tian brought the weak Meiji and the unconscious Shadow to move over 100 miles away. When he looked back, he saw a strong energy soar into the sky, like a sharp sword stabbing into the giant barrier in the sky. the entire Devil's Gate area began to violently shake. The Devil's Gate's strong barrier was hit by this strong energy and began to tremble. The mountains began to collapse, just like a super strong earthquake. The Demon Burial Cave's temple must have been built to suppress something. Now that the temple had been destroyed by Chu Tian, this large hole must have been the thing being suppressed. Meiji's expression was a bit ugly. This must be the Demon Burial Cave. Such a strong aura can only be produced in the Demon Burial Cave. The Devil's Gate's barrier and the Demon Burial Cave's aura collided. The Devil's Gate's barrier began to distort under this strong impact. It was like a giant bubble that could burst at any moment. This kind of attack and resistance lasted for about a quarter of an hour. Finally, the baleful aura in the Demon Burial Cave gradually weakened. The barrier's color was originally purplish-red, but after being attacked by the fierce killing intent, it had now turned light red. The barrier's strength had clearly been greatly weakened. After around a quarter of an hour, the energy erupting from the Demon Burial Cave finally began to spread to the entire Devil's Gate area. Chu Tian and Meiji could clearly feel that this was a very evil and cold energy. Abyss, it's the aura of the abyss. Chu Tian looked at the giant hole in the Demon Burial Cave in the distance and said, "My guess wasn't wrong, there is an abyss gate under the purgatory world." Meiji was very puzzled. "What did you say? Abyss?" The abyss world was the true origin of the demons. The various demons of the purgatory world, if one traced their origin, they all came from the abyss world. Only after entering the planar world from the abyss world, after a long period of reproduction and change, there were some differences between the planar demons and the abyss demons. The hellfire and the tentacle monsters were the abyss demons. There weren't many highly intelligent abyss demons, and the abyss demons were special, often having all kinds of inconceivable mutations and evolutions. Therefore, there were very few abyss demons. Chu Tian explained, "Actually the purgatory world was formed because of the abyss gate under the purgatory world. The so-called abyss gate can also be called a planar gate. Simply put, it is an incomparably large and stable planar channel. As long as we can pass through this channel, we can enter the abyss world." These concepts were completely incomprehensible to the people of this era. With the same logic, once the abyss world's creatures find a planar channel, the abyss world can use this channel to invade the plane. Chu Tian said this before pausing a bit before continuing, "I think the purgatory world's Devil's Gate is actually a giant array. The reason it exists is to seal the abyss channel, preventing the plane from being invaded by the abyss world." Your meaning is that the Devil's Gate is a channel that connects to another world. If you understand it like this, the Devil's Gate is actually connected to the home of your demon race. Chu Tian said this before pausing, "The abyss is not another world, we are an independent plane in the abyss. There are countless planes like ours in the abyss, and most of them don't have any life. There are very few planes that have life." Chapter 550. The abyss world was an incredible place. When Chu Tian lived in the plane era, there were many empires and large companies that had begun to colonize planes. Chu Tian had gone to the abyss world more than once, and the Forest of Chaos was one of the most important entrances to the abyss on the continent. At that time, the purgatory world was a special region of the continent. It did not belong to any empires or superpowers on the continent. The value of the abyss channel was too great, it was not something a single power or country could enjoy alone. Therefore the purgatory world region was very prosperous and advanced, it was completely different from the current purgatory world. The history books recorded that there was a calamity that erupted on the continent, which was around the middle of the source energy technology era. Countless demons and unknown life forms broke through the ground, and the abyss aura polluted the land, causing the normal citizens of the continent to be demonized. This calamity was the most serious in history, and the intelligent races on the continent lost over 30% of their population in 100 years. It took an entire 1 to 2,000 years for them to recover. This calamity was traced back to the underground purgatory world seal being broken, causing the tens of thousands of years worth of energy to explode. But it was because of this calamity that the people of the continent discovered the abyss channel buried deep underground, laying the foundation for the continent's colonization era. Chu Tian had found this place 10,000 years in advance. This underground purgatory world in the Forest of Chaos was one of the abyss channels sealed in the ancient era. Not only could one enter the abyss from here, they could also find large amounts of giant treasures left by the ancient ancestors. This was an adventure with both risks and opportunities. Chu Tian wasn't sure if exploring the abyss channel too early was a blessing or a curse for the continent. After all, the continent's technology was still very low and they didn't have the conditions to explore the abyss at all. Moreover, moving around in the abyss would attract the attention of the nomadic demons. If those damn abyss locusts invaded the continent would face a large disaster. This was not a small matter that needed to be considered. The purgatory world had many Devil's Gate areas, and one area being damaged wouldn't cause the entire purgatory world to collapse. Therefore, the abyss gate had not truly opened yet, so Chu Tian had enough time to prepare and consider it. That was because the demon burial cave and the abyssal tunnel had been accumulating energy for tens of thousands of years. Although he knew that there were many treasures hidden underground, with Chu Tian's current abilities and strength, he did not have the ability to go down and explore. The evil aura and abyssal energy that have been accumulated in the demon burial cave for tens of thousands of years has already begun to cover this area. In the next few days, this place will become a place of death. We must leave as soon as possible. Because of the energy attacks in the demon burial cave, the Devil's Gate barrier was already very weak, so there was no need to leave from the entrance. Chu Tian used the netherworld flame to burn for a long time, and with the little fox's help, he easily created another exit. The mission seemed to have ended in failure. Because the high-grade immortal herb couldn't be found, Chu Tian didn't have the mind to look for it. One was that the Devil's Gate barrier had been weakened and there would be chances to come in the future. There was no need to wait for the periodic changes. The second was that there was no meaning in finding the high-grade immortal herb now. Chu Tian and Mei Ji met the defeated soldiers that escaped from Darkness City. There were around 4,000–5,000 of them. Mei Ji learned from these people that the city lord had been killed and the Darkness City army had suffered heavy casualties. Most of the Darkness City citizens had chosen to surrender. They couldn't return to Darkness City at all. Mei Ji had gathered so many defeated soldiers along the way, so she had to find a place to hide. Chu Tian suggested, "My tyrant barracks should be able to hold your people." "No, the tyrant barracks is too close to Darkness City. If we return to the tyrant barracks now, it's impossible not to attract attention. Wouldn't we be walking right into a trap?" Chu Tian felt this was reasonable. The only thing they could do now was to build the transport tower and make other plans. Chu Tian arranged for Mei Ji to hide near the spatial mine and had Mei Ji find more of Darkness City's old subordinates. Chu Tian directly passed through the dangerous spatial crack to the spatial mine and used several days to personally mine the spatial crystals, finally successfully building a transport tower. This transport tower was in the center of the spatial mine. Chu Tian was filled with excitement. He had finally finished building the transport tower. He had been gone for an entire half a month. He really didn't know what Miracle City's situation was like. Chu Tian first went out to tell Mei Ji that he was returning to the surface to get reinforcements to take back Darkness City. He didn't care if Mei Ji knew what was going on. Chu Tian directly opened the transport tower to return to Miracle City. There was a flash of light. Chu Tian appeared at Miracle City's transport point and the fresh and natural air filled his face. This was something the sulfuric air of the underground world couldn't compare to. The city manager Zero's emotionless voice came from around him. "Hello Sir City Lord, the Vice City Lord has ordered that as long as I see you return, immediately report the news to her. May I ask if you need to report to the Vice City Lord?" Chu Tian looked around. Miracle City's transport tower was in the open, but now it was surrounded by a gorgeous hall. Miracle City had actually built a transport hall for the city in such a short period of time. It could be imagined how efficient they were. Meng Qinggu saw that Chu Tian hadn't returned for many days and she was very worried about Chu Tian. Therefore, she had Zero immediately report any news of Hinata to her. Zero was the highest-level smart brain in the city. Chu Tian's authority in the city was higher than Meng Qingguo's, therefore Zero didn't directly report the news to Meng Qingguo. He needed to ask for Chu Tian's permission first. Tell the young miss that I'll immediately go see her. Understood, Sir City Lord. Zero's voice disappeared. The matter that Chu Tian was worried about didn't happen. Miracle City was very peaceful for over half a month. When Chu Tian walked out of the transport hall, he was stunned by the scene in front of him. Miracle City had changed too much in less than a month. Various large buildings rose from the ground and the population had clearly increased. What surprised Chu Tian the most was the change in transportation. Miracle Commerce's most common transportation was the airship, and there were currently countless airships floating in the sky above Miracle City. These airships were roughly the same shape as before, but the structure had been greatly improved, especially the large number of mechanical structures on the lower half of the airships. There was even a set of engine equipment installed on the left and right side of the airships, from which light blue flames shot out to produce a strong propulsion force, allowing the originally slow airships to have considerable mobility and speed. Other than the changes in the airships, there were many transportation tools that Miracle City had never seen before. Chu Tian, Chu Tian. Chu Tian heard a familiar and clear shout from far away. Meng Yingying was riding a strange flying bike at Chu Tian. This transportation tool had two wheels that could run on the ground, and there were two metal wings on the left and right. There was a floating source energy array on it, as well as an engine that released light blue flames, giving this bike the ability to fly in the air. Meng Yingying was holding the flying bike with both hands. She was wearing a pair of cute goggles and her ponytail danced in the air. She made a beautiful turn and stopped in front of Chu Tian. She used her hand to wipe the messy bangs on her forehead and jumped off the bike. She put her hands on her hips and shouted, "You still know to come back. I heard my elder sister say that you ran underground. What is there to see down there? You actually didn't come back after so long. You have to give me an explanation today." Chu Tian gave a laugh and immediately changed the topic. "Yingying, what is this thing? It looks pretty interesting, no?" "Humph, of course. This flying bike is the best transportation tool, but it is still an experimental model. There are only a few and it can't be mass-produced." Meng Yingying said in a very proud voice, "Don't look down on this bike, it was developed by 5 departments. From the source energy array to the blueprints, it was finally given to the Elven Silver Moon City to produce, putting quite a bit of effort into it. The most important part is the engine, which is the first-generation engine developed by Miracle Commerce. The newest airships all use this technology. The source energy engine was similar to many of Miracle Commerce's products. This was an engine powered by source energy, providing a large amount of energy for the machine. Normally it was powered by source energy batteries, and when the source energy batteries were used up, it could be replaced with one's own source energy. Therefore, it was very convenient and stable. "I'll deal with you later." Meng Yingying sat on her flying bike. "Quickly get on, I'll take you to elder sister's place." Meng Yingying's bike could fit 2-3 people. When Chu Tian sat on it, Meng Yingying started the bike and it shot out like an arrow. This kind of speed was something normal people couldn't handle, but it wasn't anything for cultivators with high cultivation bases. According to Miracle Commerce's Yunsek's test, Miracle Commerce's first-generation engine could theoretically reach supersonic speeds. This kind of engine could not only be used on airships and bicycles, it could also be used in factories to provide energy. Because of the special ability of the variable speed engine, it could even be used on weapons like missiles. Meng Yingying said that there were already many companies established in the Elven race. There was a company called the Eternal Forest Elven System Company that was very famous. This company had over 300 skilled employees who were all learning the Matrix language developed by the Yun sect and were currently working on the system programming. This company had upgraded Miracle City's cell phones with a new system and was currently working on a personal non-smart device operating system, even a weapon control system. The matrix language was a very useful modern programming language that could be used to send commands to source energy matrices. Do you see the operating interface of this bike? Meng Yingying pointed at the rows of buttons and displays on the flying bike. This flying bike's operating system was developed by this company and was bought by our Miracle Commerce for 5,000 source stones. This is just one of their products. Chu Tian was secretly speechless. It's this powerful? Of course. Other than Miracle Commerce itself, the most professional company right now is this elven company. We have more and more equipment and we need to build microsystems, so Miracle Commerce is too busy at all. Now that there are elven elites starting businesses, it saves us quite a bit of effort. Meng Yingying gave a sly smile and said, this company's largest shareholder is Vivian and the second largest shareholder is this Miss. We've taken a loan of 50,000 source stones from the Elven Bank and are one of the most important companies in the Eternal Forest. Chu Tian thought that the elves were a pedantic race. He never thought that the elves' creativity would surpass his imagination. From developing a system to making the elven cell phone, the elves seemed to treat this work as a new art. The elves pursued perfection and constantly improving characteristics, which made their products very competitive. The Elven Bank hadn't even been established for a month. The Elven Reform hadn't even been a month. The elves already had 62 companies and countless large and small factories. There were hundreds of elven products that were already on the Miracle Shopping Center, being sold to the 3 northern countries and the surrounding countries, bringing a steady stream of wealth to the elves. Chapter 551. Miracle City and the elves had entered a honeymoon period, so their cooperation became closer and closer. With the full support of Miracle Commerce, they had completed many things that they didn't even dare think about before. The Elven Council's performance was very weak. On one hand, there was the strong will of the people that the elves couldn't ignore, but on the other hand, the elves didn't go against their ancestors' teachings. Establishing a company or factories, the elves did everything in the forest. The elves didn't need to personally walk the continent, they could directly sell their products in the Miracle Shopping Center or work with Miracle City. The elves didn't need to travel the continent, it was in line with the elves' principle of seclusion. Now they felt the situation was very good, there were endless opportunities for every industry. The elves had large abilities and resources, but because there were too many choices, they couldn't take care of everything in a short period of time. They could only choose a few fields with large potential to work in. The Elven King Lancelot was a leader with great foresight. After observing Miracle Commerce and Miracle City's situation for a long time, he finally came up with a core and 2 important development plans. One core was the most advantageous financial industry. The Elven Bank would play an important role in the development. Not only was the Elven Bank popular among the elves, it was even developing in the forest cities and underground cities outside of the Elven territory. With the elves' strong strength and credibility, the Elven Bank would be able to develop in the Forest of Chaos without any problems. The 2 important areas were both hard and soft. The soft was the production of the operating system and the hard was the production of the microprocessors. The Eternal Forest kept sending people to Miracle City to study, allowing them to grasp the matrix programming skills. The Elven Systems Research Company was already the fastest and strongest company outside of Miracle City. The large Elven cities invested large amounts of money into the microprocessor research factory, making chips for all kinds of equipment in the future. This was also the only power other than Miracle Commerce that was researching matrices. The loans for these 2 areas had already surpassed 100,000 source stones. Lancelot's ambition and boldness was something Chu Tian never thought of. Other than that, the elves were very enthusiastic about entrepreneurship, but most of the private companies were in the production of films and music. The concerts they produced were recorded and sold everywhere and the outstanding films they produced were shown in Miracle Commerce's theaters. Not only did this bring income and wealth to the elves, but it also allowed the elven culture to spread and influence more races. The foreign trade of the elves had also gradually opened up. With the current development situation, the tea and artwork produced by the elves had been greatly welcomed by the nobles of various countries. Now, it had become a symbol of status and taste of the upper class. Thus, it was greatly sought after. This time, the changes were great and the reforms were thorough. Every day, there was a new atmosphere. The resurgence of the elves was in sight, and they could already see the first signs of their rise. The elves had contributed greatly to the development of miracle commerce. Meng Qingguo had even sold some of the company's confidential technology to the elves. However, as a condition, all of the elves' factories, including the system research and development and matrix research factories, had shares from the upper echelons of miracle commerce. This was to ensure the benefits of miracle commerce. Meng Yingying rode the flying bike around Miracle City. He wanted to let Chu Tian see the changes that happened to Miracle City during this time. Miracle City already had a standard city plan. Industrial production, living, entertainment, and commercial activities were separated in an orderly manner. The citizen system that Meng Qingguo was in charge of had already been completed. Each Miracle City citizen had their own legal identity and their information was stored in Miracle City's database, which made it hard for outsiders to infiltrate them. Miracle City's city defense system was already very complete. The outer layer of defense was the most basic defense, and Miracle City planned to build 500 missile silos in the surrounding mountains for long-range missile attacks. Other advanced weapons were also being put into practice. The ancient tree of life was now over 300 meters tall, standing in the garden in the center of Miracle City like a towering ancient tree. The ancient tree of life's energy was gradually awakening. Not only did it make Miracle City more fertile, the ancient tree of life's energy also gave Miracle City more protection. Cenarius was closely connected to the ancient tree of life, and this Treant leader's strength was increasing day by day. With the Treants under his lead and Miracle City's firm ally, the Elven King Lancelot, even a fellow like Deathwing wouldn't dare invade Miracle City. Miracle City's army continued to expand, and the second-generation equipment was very popular. The battleships and mecha suits also had initial results. The current Miracle City was a power that no one in the Forest of Chaos could ignore. After Chu Tian had a simple tour, he finally saw the young miss in the City Lord's Hall. Meng Qingguo was busy with city affairs, but her cultivation wasn't slow. Now the Meng Qingguo sisters were both in the peak third true spirit layer. This was mainly because Miracle City had too many resources and the elves often sent gifts, which even included immortal herbs. With this kind of condition, no matter how bad one's talent was, they could still raise their cultivation. The young miss was now an important character in the Forest of Chaos. Even the powerful and proud elves admired her, and even the powerful Elven King had to respect her. It could be said that the young miss was the true leader of Miracle Commerce and Miracle City. Her every word and every policy could have a deep influence on the forest. This kind of large character was still the same as when they first met, wearing a simple white robe. She was dignified and beautiful, without any arrogance at all. That mature, noble, and capable temperament made anyone's heart move. Chu Tian was afraid that the eldest miss would reprimand him again. He didn't expect that he would be gone for so long, so he immediately took the initiative and loudly said, "The true elemental Dan that eldest miss prepared for me is really too damn useful. This time, I was able to set up an extraordinary merit in the underground world, and eldest miss has at least half of the credit. I've already eaten all of these pills, so prepare several hundred more for me just in case I need them. Use them all. Do you know how high the cost of the true spirit pill is? Miracle Commerce doesn't lack source stones at all. What is there to be afraid of?" The young Miss Meng Qingguo was filled with anger as she glared at Chu Tian and asked, "Aren't you prepared to explain where you've been fooling around these past few days? We've tried contacting you several hundred times, but we couldn't contact you." "That's right." Meng Yingying also fiercely asked, "When I was sent to the Elven territory to work, I couldn't get through to your cell phone. What is going on? You have to give me an explanation today." "Two young misses, please calm down. I didn't want to be like this. Who told me to enter the purgatory world several thousand miles underground? Our current communication technology can't penetrate this thick layer of rock, so naturally you can't contact me. The two sisters revealed looks of shock and confusion. Several thousand miles underground? What kind of joke was this? Don't be anxious, don't be anxious. Listen to me slowly. Chu Tian told them everything he experienced in the purgatory world. That's the general situation. Meng Yingying never thought that Chu Tian would experience this kind of incredible adventure. Under our ground, there is actually such a large space and there are over 10 billion underground races living? This is too incredible. Meng Qinggu knew that Chu Tian wouldn't lie to her, so she said with knit brows, there are several underground worlds deep underground. This is a large threat to Miracle City. Why does the young miss say this? I've already investigated the matter of you and Yingying being assassinated in Miracle City. Wasn't this matter very hard to investigate? The young miss actually had a clue. This meant that the young miss was very concerned about the assassination of Chu Tian and Meng Yingying, which was why she took out large amounts of time to investigate this matter. We have eliminated the Savage Highlands, the Giant's Mountain Range, and the Dragon's Ridge as the masterminds. If it wasn't them, then who could it be? I think the biggest suspect behind the scenes is the underground spirit insects, which is the people sent by the Spider Queen that our Miracle Commerce has had several conflicts with. People from the subterranean world. Meng Qinggu continued to say, the Spider Queen and the spirit insects have always been interested in the surface. She wants the forest of chaos to be more chaotic, that way the spirit insects will have a chance to fish in troubled waters. Our appearance clearly doesn't match their interests. So it was like this. They deliberately found a few dark elves and spirit beasts to make a move. Perhaps they wanted to shift the blame to the Dragon's Ridge and the Savage Highlands, or perhaps they wanted to sow discord between these large powers. In short, normal people wouldn't suspect them. It really was a good plan. Wouldn't they be wrongly accusing Death Wing and Burst Claw? Right now most of Miracle Commerce's firearms were sold in their area, with the majority being sold to their enemies. Perhaps it would make them miserable. But Chu Tian didn't think he did anything wrong. Even if they didn't assassinate him, these fellows didn't have any good intentions towards Miracle Commerce. Chu Tian didn't care this much. The purgatory world is very important to us. As long as we can control the purgatory world, we can control the Abyss Gate. This will be the foundation for our future Abyss expansion. Meng Yingying was secretly speechless. Abyss expansion? This was just too exaggerated. Meng Yingying had learned quite a bit from Chu Tian in this period of time, so she had a bit of understanding of the Abyss world. Miracle Commerce wasn't considered a peak power on the continent, but Chu Tian was actually planning on expanding into the Abyss world. This fellow's steps were just too big. Meng Qinggu didn't comment on this, but she was still very interested in the purgatory world. After all, it was a deep underground world and there were many resources that couldn't be found on the surface that could be easily found in the purgatory world. Therefore, having a place in the purgatory world was of great strategic value to Miracle Commerce. We have enough weapons. I think it should be enough to deal with a purgatory city. No, it's not that simple. Chu Tian roughly explained Darkness City's situation. It's not enough to rely on our strength this time. I hope to ask the Elven King Lancelot to make a move. Meng Qinggu thought about it with knitted brows. Lancelot had a very good relationship with Miracle Commerce, so if Chu Tian asked him to make a move, Lancelot wouldn't refuse. But the Wood Elves and Dark Elves didn't have a good relationship. It could even be considered very bad. Would Lancelot making a move bring a bad influence? But she couldn't think about this right now. The Miracle Academy has been established in Miracle City and is preparing to hold the opening ceremony. Meng Qinggu gave Chu Tian an arrangement. The Elven King is very concerned about this matter, so I will send an invitation to the Elven King to participate. You can use this chance to ask the Elven King. Chapter 552. Miracle Academy. Its full name was the Miracle Technology Research Institute. This was a comprehensive institute created by Miracle Commerce in Miracle City, which contained rich resources including Qilan Hall, the Yun sect, the spiritual library, and etc. The Miracle Academy opened up several professions after it was created, which could be divided into two main categories. One was the traditional fields and the other was the new fields. The traditional fields included cultivation techniques, secret techniques, alchemy, refining, arrays, and etc. The new fields included source energy science, source energy matrices, matrix programming, source energy mechanics, energy studies, and etc. These fields were divided into large amounts of professions. For example, in the traditional cultivation techniques, there were sword cultivators, body cultivators, demonic cultivators, and etc. For example, in the source energy science, there were energy studies, spatial studies, spiritual studies, and etc. The first batch of students was only 2,000. There were over 800,000 applications from all sides. They covered the Forest of Chaos, Great Summer, Great Zhou, Northern Militant, and etc. There were even scholars from outside Miracle Commerce's sphere of influence that came to sign up. This was because the Miracle Academy had an epoch-making meaning. It could train various talents for Miracle City, Miracle Commerce, and even the entire Forest continent. 800,000 people signing up for 2,000 students, what kind of intense competition was this? Every person that was chosen was an outstanding person and a lucky person. The Miracle Academy's plan was to recruit a batch of students every half a year. Once the students entered the academy, they would study for 5 years. After studying for 5 years and obtaining at least one professional degree, they would be able to obtain a graduation certificate from Miracle City and officially join Miracle Commerce, or they could go work elsewhere. Whether they stayed or left, as long as they graduated from the Miracle Academy, they would become a top talent in their field. Today was destined to be an extraordinary day. The Miracle Academy's opening ceremony was held today. The students that were recruited from all over were sent to Miracle City from different areas. There were over 40 students that were sent from Central State, and these 40 people were chosen from the tens of thousands of applicants in Central State City. Wow, this is Miracle City. We're finally in Miracle City. God, Miracle City is so beautiful, it's even better than I imagined. There were old and young students sent from Central State. Central State's academic level was lower than the Great Zhou country, gnomes, and elves, but because Central State was Miracle Commerce's home and they were influenced by source energy technology earlier, Miracle Commerce gave them special care. There were over 40 people accepted into the academy. Among the students of the Central Province Academy, there was a pair of ordinary-looking young men and women. At this moment, their eyes were brimming with hot tears, as though they wanted nothing more than to kiss the ground beneath their feet. They were none other than the Lin siblings from Sky South City. Their journey of growth could not be said not to be inspiring. They came from a small city in a small country and were the most ordinary children of poor families, but with their extraordinary faith and willpower, they finally came to Central State City and obtained the attention of Meng Qingguo. She gave them special privileges and allowed them to study in Qilan Hall. Later, they were accepted into the Yun sect as researchers. A month ago, when Meng Qingguo announced Miracle Academy's student recruitment plan, the Lin siblings immediately signed up. Even though their strength was average, but with their solid knowledge of source energy technology, they were able to pass through the selection of 1 in 1,000. Miracle City. Miracle Commerce's headquarters. The two siblings came to Miracle City with the mentality of pilgrims. Although they had been researchers in the Yun sect for a while, because their level was too low, they could only participate in some low-level projects, so naturally they didn't have much savings. Miracle Academy's tuition was very high, they wouldn't be able to pay for it even if they worked for 100 years. This was understandable. Whether it was the resources or technology invested in Miracle Academy, it wasn't small. There were many technologies that were top secret to Miracle Commerce, therefore the tuition was very expensive. Even after entering the academy, if they wanted to learn some special knowledge, they would have to pay a large fee. If they had a large background, they might be able to pay for this. But for most students, they didn't have a background and didn't have enough savings, so what could they do? Miracle Commerce specially created student loans, so each student could apply for a loan to pay for their tuition. The students could use the various projects they participated in to pay it back, or they could slowly pay it back by joining Miracle Commerce after they finished their studies. In short, Miracle Academy was a free school, but it was also a demanding and expensive school. Every person that came here was filled with opportunities. Lin Xian found several elves beside her and she excitedly pulled her brother to the side. Look, look, it's the elves. Miracle City had all kinds of races, which made the two sisters very surprised. A few elven girls in the academy's uniforms smiled at the siblings. Are you two here to study as well? We are elves from the Silver Moon Forest, we mainly study mechanics. This is a sister from the Eternal Forest, she wants to study the Matrix language and specialize in programming. What about you? We come from the Great Summer Country's Central State City's Yun Sect Research Facility. Lin Fan was a bit shy facing the beautiful and noble elves. We are here to study source energy science. An elf cried out in surprise, Wah, you're from the Yun Sect. The other elf's expression also changed. We've heard that the Yun Sect is very strong. The Super Source Energy Matrix computer was invented by the Yun Sect. My dream is to write a system for the supercomputer using the Matrix language. Lin Xian and Lin Fan were a bit embarrassed. Although they were from the Yun Sect, their skill level wasn't high. We'll be friends in the future, let's all work hard together. The elves were very friendly and sincere, making the Lin siblings feel very flattered. At this time, students from all over arrived. There were several dozen races, mainly elves, gnomes, and humans. In this batch of students, around half of them were elves from all over and they were all elites selected from the elven race. They were the pioneers of the new era and new technology, they would definitely change the fate of the elves in the future. Therefore, the elves placed a lot of importance on this. The Elven King Lancelot, a few council members, and the city lords were all present. Chairman Chu Tian and Meng Qingguo. The Lin siblings saw their idol again and their blood began to boil. Didn't they follow Chu Tian's footsteps to where they were today? The Heavens Alliance was becoming stronger and stronger. The Lin siblings decided to develop this alliance in the academy. This was no longer a kind of worship, it was a kind of spirit, a kind of belief. The Miracle Academy students had all arrived. They were all wearing the same uniform and were standing in the academy. The opening ceremony had officially begun. Miracle Commerce's chairman, Miracle City's City Lord Meng Qingguo personally came on stage to give a speech. Other than some pleasantries, she announced the rules of Miracle Academy as well as the hope Miracle Commerce had for the academy. Finally she announced the personnel appointments. Chu Tian became the principal. The Druid Prophet Yoda and the Gnome Great Elder Clark, these two knowledgeable people became the vice principals. The Elven King Lancelot became the honorary principal to show his support for the elves. Miracle Academy was now officially established. After the opening ceremony, Chu Tian found Lancelot. He was prepared to tell him about the matter and have Lancelot go to the Purgatory world to help. Then, an unexpected situation occurred. This is bad, Nangong has been captured by the Dragon Lord Deathwing in the Dragon's Ridge. We've already lost contact with elder sister Nangong. Meng Yingying anxiously came to find Chu Tian. After the Dragon Lord locked Nangong in Dragon City, he sent an envoy to Miracle City. He wants us to go to Dragon City and give an explanation, otherwise he will kill elder sister Nangong. What should we do? Chu Tian's expression fell. What? There was actually something like this. Nangong Yun had been active around the Savage Highlands and Dragon's Ridge, selling large amounts of weapons to the rebel forces in these two areas. Most likely the Dragon Lord and the Beast King were under pressure. This was a very dangerous job in itself. Miracle City had prepared enough scrolls for Nangong Yun, but if Deathwing personally went to capture her, she wouldn't even have a chance to use the scrolls. Our Miracle City is no longer the same as before. Nangong Yun is a high-level member and has a very high position in Miracle City. Even if the Dragon Lord captures her, he won't do anything to her. Meng Qinggu said to Chu Tian, "How about I go to Dragon City? You still have the Purgatory World mission." Chu Tian shook his head. Darkness City was not anxious. Because compared to Darkness City, saving Nangong Yun was more important. Deathwing's influence in the Forest of Chaos was enough to compete with the Eternal Forest, so it could be imagined how strong his influence was. There was no guarantee that something would happen to Nangong Yun in Deathwing's hands. Nangong Yun isn't as irreplaceable as Vice City Lord Meng Qinggu. If Deathwing kills her, it won't cause any damage to Miracle City, rather it will make him Miracle City's enemy. This is not a good method. Lancelot walked over. Chu Tian was a bit stunned. "Your Majesty, the Elven King, this is..." "With my understanding of Deathwing, he wouldn't do such a stupid thing. He just wants to capture a hostage this time and force you to go to Dragon City to negotiate." Lancelot said this, "I'll go to Dragon City with you." "What?" Chu Tian was a bit surprised by Lancelot's actions. "The Elven King is also going to Dragon City?" The Eternal Forest and Dragon's Ridge have been enemies for many years. Enemies can be resolved. The Elven King slowly said, "The elves are tired of fighting and fighting. With such a good environment, why do we need to fight to the death for the Forest of Chaos territory? I hope that we can take this opportunity to have an open and honest discussion, and stop scheming against each other." Good. With the Elven King going, Chu Tian was filled with confidence. Dragon City, the richest city in the Forest of Chaos. Chu Tian wanted to see just how rich it was. Chapter 553. The Dragon's Ridge had Nangong Yun's secret transport point, and Miracle City's transport tower was connected to the Dragon's Ridge. The Dragon's Ridge was the largest mountain range in the Forest of Chaos, spanning over 100,000 miles. The entire Dragon's Ridge contained over 300 kinds of rare minerals and over 20 cities. The only master of this place was the powerful Dragon Lord. No matter how many legends there were in the forest, only by standing in front of the Dragon City would people understand just how grand the city was. The Dragon City was built in the center of the Dragon's Ridge, with golden buildings as the main color. It faced a vast bay and was backed by a majestic mountain range. The forest city was very large and lacked planning. The Dragon City in front of Chu Tian was completely different. The Dragon City in front of him was not inferior to Miracle City, and the density of the buildings was very high, comparable to a human city. There were giant towers that were over 300 meters tall, and they were all made of obsidian bricks with intricate patterns carved into them. There was a dragon living in each tower, and the weakest dragon was in the peak 9th true spirit layer. The colorful clouds of energy and the dense heaven and earth spiritual energy seemed like they could soar at any moment. Dragon City was so big, and the majority of the buildings were useless decorations, or it could be said that they were pure works of art. All kinds of legendary powerful metals and gems were casually used here like cheap stones to build walls, showing off the Dragon Lord's shocking wealth. The ground was covered with gems and the walls were made of crystal stones. It was extremely luxurious, just like a dream city. If one had to find the most expensive building in the Dragon City, it had to be the Dragon Palace in the center. The Dragon Palace was 400 to 500 meters tall. In front of it, humans were as insignificant as a speck of dust. Such a palace itself was a magnificent and majestic project that could accommodate hundreds of thousands of people. Not to mention that the materials used to build the Dragon Palace were not ordinary. They were sparkling and moist, like jade and crystal. They seemed to be flawless, and one could see very deep into it. However, if one looked closely, they would not be able to see anything. Only each piece had different colored lights moving around without any pattern. It was like a group of fish playing around, but it was filled with a powerful vitality. It was a whole that was filled with beauty and majesty. The Crystal Dragon Palace was the Dragon Lord's palace. Any piece of this giant palace was enough for a normal person to live a carefree life. This damn newly rich giant dragon, he really spared no effort in showing off his wealth. It made Chu Tian a bit jealous seeing this. In the hall of the Dragon Palace, every jade pillar was more than 300 meters high. On both sides of the hall were piles of rare treasures. There was no need to light up the hall at all. The light from the jewels could illuminate everything inside. A huge throne carved out of natural crystal stood at the front. It was not an ordinary throne because it was dozens of meters high. In the eyes of ordinary people, it was a skyscraper. The black dragon's body, which was dozens of meters long, was lying on the throne in a very casual and lazy posture. With a slight movement of its body, the surrounding jewels tumbled to the ground like a landslide and flooded the surrounding area like a flood. "Lancelot, I don't remember inviting you." The Dragon Lord stretched out his neck and a pair of long and narrow eyes filled with deterrence were staring right at the Elven King Lancelot, as if he was very dissatisfied with the Elven King coming without an invitation. Lancelot gave a casual smile. "You should know that Chu Tian is the Eternal Forest's most important partner. The elves have to ensure his safety. I never thought that Thunder's Fury and Burst Claw would also be here. This is truly too coincidental." Two more figures appeared in the Crystal Dragon Palace. It wasn't anyone else, it was the famous Titan Thunder's Fury and the infamous Golden Behemoth Burst Claw. The two of them used a secret technique to shrink their bodies, but that incomparably strong aura was something that no one could ignore. "Elves, mind your own business." Burst Claw took a step forward. Although he didn't make any movements, the invisible pressure from his aura instantly pushed down several mountains of treasures in the palace. Even you shouldn't think of protecting this human bug today. The Dragon Lord's crystal throne was incredibly dazzling, and the black dragon's massive body slowly sat up as a wave of dragons might spread out in all directions. The sound of glass shattering could be heard all around them, and it was the sound of precious treasures being unable to withstand the might of so many experts. In the end, they were shattered into pieces. Chu Tian was submerged by the sea of pressure. Even if the Dragon Lord didn't say anything, this wild rage that drowned everything was enough to prove everything. Miracle City sent large amounts of large-scale weapons to the Dragon's Ridge and the Savage Highlands, deliberately provoking a war, causing us to suffer large losses. Is Miracle City's city lord not prepared to say anything about this matter? The Dragon Lord needs to pay attention to his words. Even in this situation, Chu Tian's expression didn't change at all. His hands were behind his back as he took 2 steps forward. Who doesn't know that Miracle Commerce does business? Wherever there is a need for weapons, we will be there. We only have supply and demand in our eyes, we only have profits in our eyes. If it really causes trouble for the Dragon Lord and Sir Golden Behemoth, I can apologize for this misunderstanding. I'll have to trouble you to release my people first and we can discuss other matters. Deathwing gave a cold laugh that was enough to break a person's mind. You want to release them with a single sentence. You seem to be thinking of the problem too simply. This is a very simple problem. Everyone is a smart person, so they know what they should and shouldn't do. Chu Tian was not panicked at all. That's right, Nangong Yun is one of my most loyal and most talented subordinates, but if you think you can threaten me or shake Miracle City with this, you're completely wrong. If you really wanted to kill the hostage, you wouldn't have waited until now, so there's no need to beat around the bush. If you have any conditions, we can discuss it openly. Deathwing, Thunder's Fury, and Burst Claw were all stunned. Although they knew that this human Chu Tian was very bold, they never thought he would reach this step. Even in front of the 3 giants, he was still this calm. Although the 3 giants did have this goal, Chu Tian pointing it out like this was not giving them face at all. The Elven King Lancelot gave a soft cough. The Eternal Forest and Miracle City are inseparable allies. Fighting Miracle City is fighting the Eternal Forest. This is not good for anyone. This is a situation no one wants to see, so there's no harm in giving me face. Alright, I'll give the Elven King face. The Dragon Lord's body shrank back and he lazily laid back on the crystal throne. How does Miracle City's city lord plan on solving this? Chu Tian very straightforwardly replied, "We'll stop the supply of weapons in this area." We'll compensate and apologize. The three giants looked at each other. Was this fellow pretending to be a fool, or was he really a fool? You want this bit of compensation to send us away? What use is there in asking for your apology? Whether it was the rich dragon lord or the powerful burst claw, they didn't care about this bit of compensation and didn't care about an apology at all. This time they captured Nangong Yun to force Chu Tian out. The main reason was because they were jealous of the elves' recent development and they wanted to keep up with them. Only their relationship with Miracle City wasn't good, so they couldn't directly mention this matter. For the three giants to become the leaders of an area, their intellect and vision definitely weren't weak. Miracle commerce was wildly developing in the forest, all kinds of inconceivable technology and products had already been exposed. How could the three giants not see the influence and potential of these things? They wanted to be like the elves and enjoy the benefits of the technology, allowing their influence and wealth to increase by 10 to 100 times. To them, to Chu Tian, and to the Forest of Chaos, this was a very beneficial matter. The four giants and Miracle City. It was enough to create endless possibilities. If it was just Chu Tian alone, they could capture Chu Tian first, but who would have thought that Chu Tian would bring Lancelot with him? Although the three of them weren't afraid of Lancelot working together, they knew that Miracle City had something called transport scrolls. With Lancelot's protection, Chu Tian could escape unscathed. Lancelot saw that Chu Tian was pretending to be a fool and said, "City Lord Chu Tian, we are all powers in the Forest of Chaos, so we should unite and create glory together. I think we should use this chance to have the five sides discuss the matter of cooperation. How about it?" Cooperation? Chu Tian revealed an awkward expression. Miracle City is developing very well right now, so we don't lack allies. If there are too many people joining and they don't follow the rules, it will make the alliance bloated. This was basically directly rejecting the three giants. Thunder's Fury's expression changed. "Human, do you really think you can do whatever you want in the Forest of Chaos with just you? We've only been giving you face these past few months, otherwise with the strength of the three of us, do you really think you can develop in the Forest of Chaos until now?" Thunder's Fury is right. Actually, if you were just making a small ruckus in the forest, with our status, we wouldn't bother interfering. Even the matter of selling weapons this time, although it gave us a bit of trouble, it doesn't count as anything. The Dragon Lord had a serious expression, but Miracle City's actions in the Forest of Chaos with the elves have already broken the balance of the Forest of Chaos. We can't just sit back and do nothing. Burst Claw was even more direct. Transport towers, space warehouses, communication systems, weapons, smart brains, banks, factories, and etc. What the elves have, we also need to have, otherwise we'll just have to wait for war. For this kind of matter. Why didn't you say so earlier? Chu Tian shrugged his shoulders and said, "It's not that I don't want to cooperate with you, but with Miracle City's current resources and abilities, we can only support the elves' reformation, we might not be able to." The Dragon Lord gave a dissatisfied snort. Dragon City is the wealthiest city in the Forest of Chaos. Anything the Eternal Forest can take out, Dragon City can also take out, so what is there to be embarrassed about? Burst Claw and Thunder's Fury also expressed this. Chu Tian thought about it and said, "If you want to cooperate with Miracle Commerce and obtain the technological benefits of Miracle Commerce, then help me with a small matter first. I believe with your strength, this matter is very easy to solve." You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.